Director of Institutional Management of the UC, and also President of Education, and also Thiago Rached, co-founder and CEO of Letrus. Francisco Gallego is Masters of Economy by the University of Chile. He has a postdoctorate in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he is a professor of economy since 2016 and also works since 2020 as professor in economy and is part of research of the history of economy, economy in politics. He has been forming many cohorts of engineers, and it's part of the public institutions in Chile. He has been working with them since 2025. Thiago Rached is co-founder and CEO of Letrus, a platform based on AI, recognized by the UNESCO as the best educational tool of the world. He is also founder and investment in risk capital for education to close the gap in Brazil and beyond. He has worked also at Foundation Teles. He has a bachelor's from the Sao Paulo University. He has a master's in education from the Columbia University, and he is also the fellow and person of the year fellow. So please come to the stage, Francisco and Thiago, so we can start with this chat that is named AI Opportunities for Improvement in Education, a conversation between practice and academia. So please take the stage. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here with you all. My Spanish is not really great, so this presentation will be also a great class of Portuñol. I would like to start with a question. What's the most important invention in humanity? For many people, for many professors, and the answer is writing. The skill of create text and register language, building thus knowledge. That's what led Homo sapiens to be the dominant species in the world. But the right to language, to writing, to reading is not universal. In Brazil, from where I come, only 10% of the adults can be considered completely with literacy complete. So they can read a book from high school level and understand the messages, or write an essay of just one page. We say that not all of the problems in education have to do with literacy, but they all start there. So why do we have this problem? Our vision in terms of this problem is that some students are invisible. Here, this essay that you can see is from a student of the last year of high school in Sao Paulo. This is the assessment of their essay. That's one the grade the teacher gave. So the question is, what has this student to do to improve his grade from 5 up to 7? I don't know. It's impossible to understand how this student would be able to improve his text and his writing. And that's the issue that we see in Letrus. When we founded Letrus 10 years ago. Students are invisible without data. It's practically impossible to understand how can we improve or help effectively each student to improve and really learn to read and write. So what we understand now is that when we talk about data, we are not talking about data of an assessment of the last year or a national test. We are talking about the data of Jorge, of Juliana, of Daniel, of the students that we have today in our classroom, that are today in the activities. Now, we are all here talking about AI. And we created our program, a program to develop writing skills and reading skills for kids, specifically those that are in middle school and high school, especially in high school. They are developing their writing skills. So we developed this AI, that's ours, in these 10 years. And why did we create an AI? I am not an engineer. To be quite honest, I wasn't even imagining creating something like that. What we wanted to understand is how can we effectively help the students to learn. And what we saw, as I presented in the slide that we just saw, is that kids don't have feedback in their assessments. There is no feedback that helps to progress, to improve. The second point has a lot to do with Ezequiel's work that he showed a little bit earlier, is that children don't practice writing skills regularly, continually in the schools in Brazil. That happens not because it's not possible, but it happens because the teachers don't have or don't want or don't have the time or energy to check and correct so many essays. That's why practice is really few and far in between in Brazil. So what we need to resolve thus is how can we create more practice and how can we look into the student deeply. That's why we developed this AI. So AI is nothing, has no value if we don't understand really clearly what's the issue that we are trying to solve. Here, I'm going to present a video of 10 years ago. This is 2016, about our IA, and then I will show you and present a bit how it's working today. Children write it in their computers. They start writing, and we are capable to identify patterns. Patterns that tell us what's most important in the text of this student. Then we start understanding basic patterns of grammar, but not just that. This student, for instance, he needs to develop the different accents in the writing. For more, we are capable, 10 years ago, we were capable to understand the role of each of the words. And to understand those elements, the context of the type of text, the genre of the text that the student is writing, which year they are in now in school, something that some other AI cannot do. So we went into quality, the structure of what the kid is writing is more than just the basic elements. Then, within time, we started to understand the structure of the expressions. If the expressions that are being used are appropriate for this type of genre or whatever was asked as the prompt of the text. This was 10 years ago. This is the basis of our AI. And it's important to say that the results that I'm going to present right now are based in this AI. A lot before ChatGPT or generative artificial intelligence, and before it was available for the public, for the general public. We are a curricular program. We are not a program that is part of the schools. We are with the schools that work with us. And I'm going to explain how this program works. To understand what we do, right now, this is how an assessment looks of a student in one of our days at school. So it's really important. Look, there is no grade here. The grade is something that really is not important for this process of learning. What's important is that the student understands what's most important after they write a text. And here we present the priorities on what they need to work on. We also show what they have done well, what is correct, so they can comprehend that it's not just, okay, this is wrong. We also need to show them what they are doing right. Here we give 1 or 2 points, really specific points, of actions that they can use to improve in their text or next essay that they write. We presented in the text, we included the different text elements of the text that connect with that point. This is not exactly AI. This is pedagogical experience, and that's really important to understand. After that activity, this reading activity and assessment, and there are others, so they can develop the specific abilities that they need. Oh, I need to change the window. Just a second, please. So a question that we receive: is it effective? Is it actually improving learning of students, or is it not? For this question, we have funding specifically for the J-PAL laboratory, is a really recognized center of research and works really closely with the UC University of Chile. And the idea is to understand the impact on learning with this type of technology. And this video wants to show a bit of that. It's in Portuguese, but we have subtitles in Spanish. Or maybe it doesn't have subtitles. Let me check.
Nosotros testamos eso antes de empezar y cambió.
It was ready before we started, but it changed.
Bueno.
Okay. When I got into the platform, I wrote an essay, whatever I wanted. Immediately, it told me what I needed to do. I love it because, in general, it helps you and gives the potential to improve immediately. This technology helps a lot. It should be always like that. It was really necessary to have many secretaries of the state working together, especially when we are trying to fight against the lack of knowledge and learning. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be part of this endeavor. And it explains the results when you see it. It's not just any project. The problem that we had, we were focused on 54 municipalities with more than 400 teachers. Close to 100% of the students that participated improved.
A gente encontrou efeito bem positivo. Isso dá aumento de quase 18 pontos na nota do Enem, que significaria uma redução de quase 10% no gap de notas entre os alunos de escola pública e privada.
Do primeiro ano do Fundamental 1 até o último, no terceiro ano do ensino médio, existe um mar de aulas de língua portuguesa, com aproximadamente 1.800 aulas.
We have seen that the different years had been improving with their Portuguese. Everyone is connected from the ministry up to the students, and it has been of great impact. We had just 5 online classes. It is really obvious how relevant it is when we look into the results. There is no other platform that uses this information in this manner to help the students to improve. It is a custom-made task that each student follows through to improve in what they need. With many of these things, it depends on if you want and I want to improve.
This research took place in was based in 2019, way before ChatGPT, and it's important to highlight that we applied Letras for only 5 months, and the students that was finalizing their school years, the last year of high school, once they concluded their high school education, take the national test that we have in Brazil. It's called ENE. And the most important part of that test is the essay. That's the most valuable portion of that grade to access university. The students that use Letters had an average rank of the second national rank in the state. We did this in the state of Espírito Santo. That was the second state of Brazil. The students of the control group were in the 8th place. So in 5 months, we managed to get the students to from the 8th place to the 2nd place. And we proved with the research that in 5 months, the students that are graduating high school with 5 classes, we were able to reduce in 9% the difference of grades between students from public school that use Letras and the students of private schools of the state of Espírito Santo, with an incredible participation of the teachers and students. And we checked with the research that with the methodology that the program works, that has never before seen results. And the question is, at a bigger scale, does it work as a public policy? And after the pandemic, which was chaotic for everybody, we put the Espírito Santo, the official program of development of writing, 2022. And Espírito Santo was the first state of Brazil to have the best scores of the national test for the first time. It used to be in the 11th position. Of all of the other states that started with the program, they all had in the first year the best grade improvement as well, historically, in that national test. So what we can see here is that the program with AI, and not only with AI, but mainly pedagogical technology, can work. And you can have some really effective learning results. With this presentation, you can understand that the technology is magical, and it's like the secret sauce. And Letras is the AI, and AI isn't the most important part of this program. The most important part of the programs are 2. The first one are the curricular layers. The program works well and has a record participation of students and teachers, because it was designed and built so that it could be integrated naturally on day-to-day basis of schools. So we created learning roadmaps to develop all of these skills that are part of the development of writing and reading. It isn't just about writing a text and having feedback. That's something you can do with ChatGPT. But the activities to develop, to learn, and to practice those specific skills are very, very important in order to obtain the results that we are having. Second is that we understand that the capacity of implementing the technology for tens of thousands of students at once, such as the example of those Brazilian states that are very big, it requires a good implementation technology, and we understand that to do so you need 4 layers. First, the operational infrastructure. Sometimes we have thousands of students writing at the same time, and the machine is necessary. That technological strength is key. Many schools have no computers for all students. So how can we organize so that the children can write in a way that doesn't affect the progress of the curriculum? Things like that. The management of implementation, that's another aspect, the participation of the teachers, the students, whether they are using and practicing. Also, curricular support in each state that we work at. We have a need of integrating the program to the curriculum, the material, the content that are being worked on within the class. That is also another important point. And lastly, data management. How this data that's generated by the children are coming back to the class, going back to the process of teaching, of the process of learning. And all of that, where the results of the learning process are guide. It's what guides the teachers, the technical team, the district, and also the students. It is key that all this data is applied so that there is a continuous feedback from the students. And this is an example of how our AI is being applied today so that we can not only improve the process of learning and teaching of the students, but also of the leadership of the school and the team of the network. This is a real example. And when we have a school and when the students of our network do an activity with us, if I send the data, the raw data, the graphs, the charts, for those responsible ones, for the principals of the schools or for the principals of the network, the data itself won't have as much value. What can I do with that? So what does it matter that I have 20 competitions to be developed in my network, or that school A or B is better or worse than another? That does not allow us to build an action. So what we are doing now is to collect the data and we create conclusions that allow us to prioritize actions and understand clearly what's most important that we do in this moment for each one of the layers of the network. Directors of school, coordinators, teachers, students. For example, here we were able to say, for example, for the technical team of a secretariat, that for one of the schools, group of schools of one specific region, it is necessary to work on the diversification of textual connectors. That's a real example. But what can I do with that? We immediately or automatically build the actions. We propose, we don't send, but we propose specialized messages of the technical team for principals, teachers, about the performance of their students, with the evidence that shows that this is the most important skill to be worked on during the class. We build training for the teachers and need to work on that skill with their students. So before the class, we do a training of 10 to 15 minutes for the teachers so that they can understand how to work on those skills with those children. We build plans for the classes so that the teachers can get into the class without that preparation work, but with autonomy of what to use, what to change, with full autonomy on what they can do, but with the content. And also we propose a specific assessment for children to understand whether that skill actually improved after we've taken all those measures, all those actions. This is all provided by our pedagogical AI. And with the work that we are doing in Brazil with Letros, we started now looking at other countries in Latin America to disseminate our impact. We were awarded by UNESCO on their 2020 award as the best educational technology in the world. And it is the first time that Latin American technology is awarded with this in more than 20 years. We became a case study at Harvard because of the impact we are creating. We also have an alliance with Stanford of the Graduate School of Education. They are using the data of Letros, and they develop studies and research to understand better how technologies of pedagogical innovation impact the development of the students and teachers. We also have a specific alliance with JPAL from MIT to create new RCTs, new scientific research, and focusing on literacy specifically. To conclude, some learning we've obtained with the application of AI in the classes of Brazil that we believe is necessary to develop new educational technologies. First, to understand that it is possible to have a significant impact in the short term and also at a big scale with educational technology. The how is much more important. Second, that the challenge is mainly pedagogical and of implementation. It's not technological. It is important to understand the problem in depth. What is it that we're trying to solve? The problem will show us the solution and not the solution showing the problems. And educational technology isn't only possible, but it's necessary to develop it in Latin America because our problems are very specific. We need that depth. We need to understand the context. And if we understand that we're capable of use this technology to develop our education and to improve the learning of our students, it is very important that to do so, we are protagonists of the process and not just importing technologies from abroad. Thank you very much. Thank you, Thiago. And we invite now Francisco Gallego so that we can begin with the conversation that's called Improvements from AI, a conversation practical from the academia. We leave now the floor to Francisco Gallego. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thiago. You speak really good Spanish, better than Chilean. The idea is that in this part of the summit to have a conversation of knowing the experience of Letros, that is incredible, and have a conversation surrounding insights that you have gained through your experience and that challenge to bring it into our classrooms in Chile and Latin America. So we don't have that much time though. Yeah, I will keep moving ahead. It looks like we started later, but okay. There are some aspects that I think are really interesting of the Letros experience. Maybe thinking about the conclusions that you mentioned, Thiago, that make us ask ourselves how AI in particular can drive better educational output and better learning. JPAL also is part of the, although in other contexts we have also worked with them. And Thiago, you said that, but today you serve more than 1 million students. Brazil is huge, but that is still a great amount of students. And the idea is to scale it. It's a technology that is not boutique, but is present in many places and places with a lot of needs in Brazil. Also, that path was made starting in a smaller scale, being really throughout, collaborating with people in academia, with different creators of courses. And in the third place, another thing that I find interesting is the collaboration that you have with schools. That's the fourth point I want to mention later on, how you work with schools and regional authorities. It's like a top-down solution. It's a solution that is being co-built with the different schools. And as you said, it's not the tool. The important is that people use it. And the fourth point is, in your own words, Thiago, he says, this is not a technology of AI. This is a technology for education. And there could be others that are not digital, for instance. So I think that's really interesting of this solution. It's a solution that is really a start at the global level. I remember with Bruno Felmel. I don't know where he is right now, but he's in Sao Paulo, and we are a bit close. We're a bit of friends, and he said that AI, many years ago, he said, he was using it to correct essays, not math essays. And when he said that, it was like, oh no, we cannot do that. But now we're doing it. So I want to link those two ideas. How can we link this example that's really interesting and important with other questions that appear in one side of literature in terms of how technologies like AI arrive into schools in a bigger scale? So, and the context, this is not just because I have a position of responsibility. I'm also working on a project in India and Kenya with a team that has one of the Nobel Prizes of Economy, with also Alejandro Sáez from Católica. And the question in Kenya and India, it's a huge scale. The context is full of needs and gaps. And there are some things that we are always thinking about. Firstly, maybe we didn't talk about this, but if we had time to chat about this, is where is the human side? Because maybe the solutions are not easy to just find. Maybe those who are older, in the university I studied in the US, they started with apartheid. And here in Mercurio, one of our newspapers said that AI was going to replace AI. And many said, no, kids cannot have access because they are too poor. I'm going to solve this issue. So yeah, at the beginning it's a person that has a lot of good intentions, but in reality it doesn't work. But because if there is no human behind it, and we can see that happening in other places too, like Peru. What happens with a kid or that is 15 years old and gets a computer? I don't know, it's a bit maybe obvious what would happen. And Also, let's think about interventions in where technology doesn't operate. And this is an example that we have research on with 3,000 students. Many of those are done without technology. There are students that are there just 1 hour and learning for that, and that program is not designed. So there's something inside it. How I use technology to free time from the teacher, and Letro's investigation is quite interesting. It's really interesting how time for teachers changes, the time for students. That's the most interesting thing. The idea is that children can improve their results, but that doesn't mean that you have to give it more hours. If I give 0 hours, it's really not probable that I will learn, but if I use better my hours, I will learn. So the idea is to give more hours to support the students and teachers, and the students write more essays. So there is a question here where the human side comes into it. I'm sorry, I'm an economist, but the optimal time frame of human versus technology. And also, it's really interesting what Thiago presented at the end. At the end of the day, the question of is this successful in the bigger scale is a question that you said is not just to have an algorithm that works. I need that what creates that algorithm is used by a teacher in Brazil, in Espírito Santo. So that part of the investigation is what we are working with really important people, because it not only has to do with computer sciences, but also with the product that I will give to that person concretely. Is it friendly? Is it adapted to my culture? Is something that makes sense? Is something I am part of? And in third place, yes, we have many questions that just arise. We are in Kenya and India, and we are working with Pradam. This is one of the biggest NGOs of the world. And it's really impressive because they do all of this by hand. So it's really interesting, their methodology. It has a lot of empirical evidence in India and other places that are really vulnerable in their contexts. So within time, we have different assessed materials to assess the kids that are really creative. And with that information, we let know teachers, and they adapt how to teach to that child inside the classroom. Sometimes it depends on the level of difficulty, maybe the contents, and it's really impressive that this is being done by hand. So the question is, how can I add to that process information, technology, AI, to improve assessment and give feedback for the teachers? I don't know if I make myself understood. When they invited me to be part of that project, I thought it wasn't really that important, but at the end of the day, it is not trivial, because things start happening that are quite interesting. So, and this is an open question. With AI, I can assess almost people in real time. Not in real time, but it's easier. And the methodology of J level is dividing children according to their levels. And if you look at it literally, you are changing kids every day in their group. So, and you realize it doesn't make sense. I don't know if I'm making sense myself. I hope you understand me. So imagine Thiago started knowing a lot. Pancho didn't know anything about this. And now Pancho knows a lot more than Thiago. And they keep moving ahead. It's more efficient that we adapt, but also education is community, is linking with one another. So to finish my comment for this conversation, because I don't know how much time we have, has to do with that. It's three things that I want to highlight, and that are in letters. This idea of where the human side comes in, where we can see teachers, it was important for them, they changed their time allotment, and that's not obvious. It's not obvious how to do it. And also all of these questions of the last mile. How can I actually use this in the classroom with a culture and a history that's theirs? And also, how can I answer not obvious questions, like the teaching applied to each student? How can I create groups that accompany themselves? And also highlight again, maybe for the audience, this is a technology that more than 1 million of students use. And it has assessment, and they work with schools, with government, with the state of Brazil. I don't know how much time do we have, because we wanted to have a conversation here. We are improvising right now. I have a question for you, Thiago. Do you want to react to something that I just said? I have two questions. One, this is an app. Letters, you showed us an application that is in Portuguese to check and correct essays for kids that are now in high school. How can we expand it? In which other facets of language can we expand it? The opportunities that and this development that you had created in education can be used. We started with writing, and right now we are looking into language in a general way. So how can we make that the 90% that I showed becomes 0? I mean 100. And literacy is really important. And many ask, why don't we use this in math? If we can use the same methodology, why not? And it's really probable that we are going to concede our technology so someone develops that with our technology, because it's really complex, it's really specific. To talk with a teacher of Portuguese about the last mile is completely different to talking with a teacher of math. And right now we are working with 7 school years. So I don't know how is the structure here in Chile, but in Brazil we have Fundamental 2 and then high school for you. So it's 7 years from middle to high school, and we work with children that are also poorer. We understand that is a technology that needs to adapt to curriculum, to practice, to system, to context for other countries. But we know it's natural that it could be used in other countries of Latin America. Thank you so much. We are here for all of you, especially Thiago. You can see that he speaks Spanish better than us. Thank you.
Agradecemos a Thiago Rached nuevamente por lo que fue no solamente la presentación, sino que
That was the
también su
presentation, and thank you for your
al prorector Gallego, quien le hace entrega de
participation.
estos
So
regalos,
the
especialmente para Thiago.
deputy
Muy
rector
contenta poderlo
gives
tener aquí junto a
acknowledgement to
nosotros
Thiago.
en esta instancia. Y a continuación,
Next,
queremos
we
invitarlos a
want
todos
to
ustedes a
invite you all
revisar el
to
programa
look
de
into
ponencias.
our
Uno puede hacer
program
simplemente
of
con su
different lectures.
credencial.
You can do it
Al
with your
regreso,
credential.
van a,
In the
encontrar
other
ahí el
side, you
código
will
QR y
find the
poder
QR code.
revisar
You
justamente
can
y
then
poder
review the
acreditación, la credencial
different
más bien, perdón,
lectures.
que recibieron en el momento de la acreditación. Así que
You
ahí
got
van a
that
poder
when
ver el
you
programa correspondiente a la sala que corresponde a lo que es su
arrived
elección.
today, and then you
Ya
can
las
find
4:30
what you
vamos
want
a
to
dar
look
por
at.
finalizada
So
la presentación de las ponencias, así que los esperamos a las
we
4:30
wait
en
for
punto
you
en este
here
mismo
at
salón para poder continuar
4:30 so
con
we
el
can
programa.
keep
Antes
moving
de eso
ahead
sí,
with the
quiero
agenda.
comentar
Before
que
that, though,
Felipe Comola también tiene un
Felipe
mensaje
Comola
para
also has a
comunicarle a
message
todos
for
ustedes,
you
así que
all.
les pido
So
también un poco de
please,
atención.
a bit of your attention here. Good afternoon. Just so we understand how now things are going to work. As they already said, in your programs, when you scan the QR codes, you can see the 5 classrooms that we have. Originally, they were going to be from 3 to 4:30. Don't worry, they are going to start later, maybe some minutes, so don't worry about that. In these classrooms, this is one of those. This is the Aula Magna, and the rest are all in this. So if you go to the classroom that you like the most, if it's too full, maybe you could go to another. And we will see each other here at 4:30 or 4:40. If you want to look into the lectures here, you can stay, and if not, please go ahead. Thank you.
tarde. En este momento voy a oficiar como moderador de esta mesa de ponencia. Le damos la bienvenida a todos, la bienvenida a los ponentes y en especial la bienvenida a los primeros ponentes, quienes tienen como tema el codiseño de un sistema de gestión para el desarrollo del liderazgo directivo a nivel local en una nueva educación pública. Perdón. Innovación curricular con inteligencia artificial, herramientas prácticas para fortalecer el alineamiento pedagógico transdisciplinar. Los autores, María Francisca Espinosa Arancibia y Paulina Duarte. Les recuerdo que los ponentes tienen 20 minutos, les avisaré 5 minutos antes y el tiempo también se puede extender un poquito a 25 minutos quizás. Bien, les avisaré 5 minutos antes que concluyan y si nos queda tiempo...
I will let you know 5 minutes before it ends, and then we will have a round of Q&A. Please, you're welcome.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon.
Quería darle la
I
bienvenida
wanted
a todos
to
los
give you
distintos,
all
profesores y
a
gente de
warm
apoyo
welcome,
pedagógico que está acá hoy día.
especially all of you that work at schools. Thanks to the university UC, because they make the summit each year. And thank you to all of you, because we have really interesting lectures simultaneously, and you stayed here, so we hope this is interesting for you. We go away a bit of what has happened this morning, and they talk more about the work of the principals and directors, and this is more for the classroom. So we're going back into the field, let's say, and I hope this will help you all and motivate you to be with your teachers. And it's the search for these new tools. It's really important without taking away the value of the teacher, of their decision making. And we believe in our teachers here. The origin of this lecture arises in a course of AI that was given last year for teachers. Maybe some of your teachers took it. It lasted for a week, and I think I can say it, Caja Los Andes made it. And I don't know if you know, but the way of integrate these groups had to do with the time the teachers had. So the group was with teachers of different levels, of also in 2 schools and different classes. It was at random, and we had to work together and meet weekly goals that made us talk. I know all of the principals want teachers to work together, and you tend to work always with the same teachers. So this made us work together. And yes, we have issues that are common, that for you are not surprised. I think you all have heard that we have a lot of demand, that it's hard to find the curriculum coherence and make everything fit together. There is not much time for planning for our parents and so on, and we all want more pedagogical support. And we see a high potential of these tools because many of us stayed as users, but Francisca wanted to get into the creative part. And one of the challenges that she found is not an issue of resources, that's good, but there was a lot of material. However, how can we select so much information so the teachers can apply it? So the texts are incredible, but teachers don't really have the time to select them, to read them all. So the challenge is to improve the alignment of our curriculum, And this is looking specifically into planning, especially for the classes of that planning and to strengthen the process. How, through a system being supported by AI, she created this specialized prompt that is for education and is aligned pedagogically, so it is coherent with what we wanted to get at that time. And the key is feedback in a collaborative manner, because it improved a lot with the feedback that teachers were giving. Now, Fran, please come to the stage so you can explain how you created all of this.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Paulina. I insist, I would like to do a correction. I appreciate you a lot as a professional, but this was 100% collaborative, so it's both of our jobs. We did the work. Okay, so I will focus on the technical elements that were used at each stage of this creation. Because you think that although this is an AI, it will be very automatically made, but it isn't so. At least for people like us, we're not experts on that. Like I mentioned it, in the morning, the University of Florida, it's just recently working on a discipline based on AI. So this was a challenge to take this risk, to take that leap. And by the end of the presentation, I hope that this is something that interests you as well. You don't need to be a specialist. You don't need to know about programming. I knew nothing about that, so you can share with me how it goes for you. So we had 3 stages for the model. First, we searched for tools, for chatbots that would help me create another chatbot that is specialized. The second stage was that once we chose the platform, we needed to create a prompt, basically the instructions according to the pedagogical goals we had, and the added value is related to what Paulina was presenting, and it's related to these texts. Because for us, for instance, we have a lot of training of differentiation, conceptual learning, etc. But like Pauli said, it's very difficult for our teachers to actually take that into practice. So sometimes the knowledge stays here, but nothing else happens or is not used, to be very honest. And that's reality of what actually happens. So in this case, the added value, and we will dig deep into this aspect later. For us, this added value is related to achieving this intersectionality, because this is a globalized world, and it's what makes it meaningful and lasting. So this was the first stage, to select a platform. And it is very interesting. You can explore and play for a long time. And we enter the platform and we ask what tools in the platform could be the most appropriate for the goal and the pertinence. And in our case, it was conceptual and intersectional learning that can be applied to all, but it can also maybe be applied to another pedagogical approach. We finally chose DeFi. That was a recommendation of ChatGPT, because it was the one that adapted best. We tried others. Some you had to pay, some were difficult to use because of the type of computer. We didn't have other computers, so we finally decided on using this one. To create a prompt, to create these instructions. This was made up of 3 key elements. First, to clarify the role of the assistant of the application. The second, the role of the user. Lastly, the context. Where are we immersed? Where are we using the platform? All of that is the prompt and instructions. And now we're going to dig deep on each one of these. So this is how it looks. You can scan it now or later. The language is very simple. We wanted it to be as friendly as possible for all of the members of the community, for principals, teachers, etc. And we've already talked about the role of the assistant, the role of the user. And in the role of the assistant, it is necessary to nurture it. And that's where the added value comes from. Because we asked ourselves, what's the difference between what we want to do and doing that directly with ChatGPT, Claude, or any other? And we realized that based on that course we took, we realized that these chats, that when the source is not trustworthy, sometimes it isn't professional, and there's always people talking about education in blogs, but not necessarily experts of education. And the other problem that platforms have as well is related to the hallucinations. I don't know if you know this, somebody was nodding over there, but these hallucinations is when these AIs don't know something, they make it up. And in addition to the problem Paulina mentioned, that is another global issue with this. And how did we solve it? Well, by nurturing it with the material that is included in these books. Material that has already been reviewed. We know who the actors are, where is it coming from, the cognitive origin, and the entire evolution, and the why it works. And we nurture these with this knowledge. So why did we use the concepts as a means for this intersectionality? And we talk about concepts that need to be universal, abstract, and without seasons. Because if I say the concept of change, can anybody mention an example of that? For example, if I was in a conference of this, or now I'm at a conference of this other topic, something very simple of daily lives. In terms of discipline, the change can happen vertically and horizontally. For example, in a younger student's class, we can see it in science, in the change of plants, or the change of human beings. And interdisciplinary, we have the same goal, but from different areas. For example, in another field, and let's leave the classroom, but let's move into the university world. But for example, chemotherapy. Chemotherapy joins two disciplines, nuclear physics and medicine, right? And these two come together to solve a problem. This is a change in the way you treat cancer, in the way you treat several diseases. So it's multidisciplinary. That is related to, for example, the change in industrial revolution. I look at it from a different perspective, and it's the same phenomenon, but from different subjects, you look at it differently. So the change has some scientific foundations that influence this industrial revolution. It also has some changes in terms of the historical periods. It creates like a breaking point, but can also be looked at from the argumentation point of view. Why the changes happen? What were the consequences? Students can provide arguments about it, etc. And when it is intersectional, it's to look back at the beginning, is to take this to any other place. It's to take this into the world. And what do we want? Well, so that education is meaningful, we can leave the classroom and not only be part of the subjects, but take it beyond that, beyond schools. I can think of a change of my personal life, and if I think about that change, it's the same concept of change that we have here. Based on this knowledge, and to get to this knowledge, what we did was that with base of the problems, which was basically grounding this knowledge with specific strategies. I'm sorry, and we adapted and nurtured it. You can see some strategies over there. The quadrant, some practical activities with simple materials. About the implementation, this was implemented on the second semester of the year. This was by the end of the year. And first, thank you to all the people who collaborated, because we know it's very challenging to do this at the end of the year. We all have so many things to do, but they were willing to test the tool. And based on the feedback, we had to do some adjustments that we are going to share with you. First, related to the language, because this was done at a bilingual school with English. And so in the beginning, it would say hi in English, and you would have to say, please speak to me in Spanish, and it corrected it. And that was a very specific example. Here, in the beginning, it showed activities, conceptual activities, and disciplinary activities. However, it didn't join them. So this intersectional bridge wouldn't do that. It would look at the disciplinary or interdisciplinary perspectives, and we wanted to go beyond. So a change in the format, this was not planned. And the other thing, which is the improvement that was a consequence of what I said earlier, which is operational efficiency improvement that's related to time. And of course, by doing these adjustments, we save time, effectiveness, because if we left it as it was too long. You had to do adjustments such as, please tell me how to do this, what materials do I need, etc., etc. And in the end, we were not saving that much time when you had to correct this so often. And the opportunity of improvement that we have for next school year, different than this end of year, this past year, which was a leap of faith. We want to do this from the beginning of the year, applying it systematically with a variety of different institutions and leaving a more formal record on the way we evaluate the impact. And it has to do with intentionality and bigger samples. So Francisca explained the process of creation and how do you feed this. And that's the value of the teachers. Who knows? These are the students we have, the characteristics of the schools, and this is what we need to feed the AI and how we can guide the AI so that it's useful for our schools with each particular reality. And that's the value we wanted to achieve. We believe that we were able to perfect this tool thanks to the teamwork. Although the idea came up from Francisca, there are a lot of professors or teachers who are providing feedback to it as well. And we're talking about saving time, but luckily the application of the tool does not mean a lot of time. It was later, it took longer to provide the feedback saying this is not useful for me or is not what I expected. And also the capacity of doing the correction. Another thing that's important, this was not imposed by a principle that everybody needed to use the tool. This was volunteer work. All of that was volunteer work, and that provided added value as well. Since it is in continuous development, AI is it's fed as the more you use it, and if it is used at school, it provides more information, works best, and that happens to all AI. So feedback is basically the foundation of the presentation, and it worked really well so that the results were better and better, and that allowed us to replicate it because it was in just one class, one grade, and we could try with different classes. And we did some tests with secondary education, but then they took tests by the end of the year, and it wasn't the best time to do experiments with them. But we think it is absolutely, it can be replicated. And what were the contributions of having applied this, and we'll see in the future as well? Well, first, it reinforces the use of concepts, and it causes the horizontal and vertical planning to be clearer. We know where we want to go. It highlights those key concepts that we all need to apply. And once you do the adjustments, you obtain more efficiency, because in the beginning, yes, it took time. And the role of the teacher does not diminishes, because it was, since they provided the feedback, they realized that's what they wanted, that's what they needed. Lastly, they are the ones making the decisions, deciding, is this proposal useful for my class or not? We all have a class that's different than the other, and the planning doesn't really match with them exactly. I look at strategies that Francisca used with primary school students, and in secondary education, I've had examples of students that complain because they see I use stars, and then a kid in secondary education complains because of the star, and those are different realities. So those are basically the contributions, where the teacher has the role and decides, among many proposals, which are the ones that convince them the most. We believe that although this experience is small, and it starts in a very small group and starts to broaden up to understand that what's a real impact, because I've explained this is replicable, it can be replicated, and it is accessible as well. And since this is based on feedback, we share with you our emails in case you want to talk to us, because we might not have time for questions, but if you have any, you can write us. I'm sorry, I forgot to say, I am a teacher of secondary education of social sciences. Francisca is a primary school teacher, and we started talking about these different disciplines, sharing our realities. And I hope that you like the presentation. And if we have any space for questions, I'm not sure. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you again, and congratulations for the presentation. The next presentation, I'll try to get it ready here. I need technical help, please. Next presentation is Chile Más Online, Innovation, Collaboration, and Teacher Leadership. Authors, María Fernanda Sosa Wright, Margarita Vial Irarrázaval, and Sofía Mata Izquierdo. They come from Chile Más.
Muy buenos días.
Good afternoon. Thank you, University Católica, for this space and invitation to talk about an issue that is so important today. How AI and digitalization can transform in real engines to strengthen teacher collaboration and our teaching capital in schools. Thank you all for being here. And we want to share an experience, Chile Más Online. This is a program that is born from that. And we want to share what the teachers learn when the AI is used for them for their practice and leadership. And the last presentation talked about the result of one of these courses. They were one of the projects that worked with us and brought it into reality. So it's quite moving to listen to them before I present. And I want to share where this program was born from and a bit more general terms. We are Margarita Vial and Sofia Mate. We are the education part of Chile Más. And we want to share our experiences and help everyone connect and share experiences and leadership. And we start from a reality that we don't like, but we see each day, and you know it better than us. Burnout, teachers that live in the career, lack of time, of readiness, lack of challenges, and those are hurdles that we see as a teacher. It's not just on the papers, we see it also in evidence. And in Tally survey that is based on the perception of the teachers, this crisis is not just of well-being, but also of professional learning and development. This survey shows that they don't have really that many opportunities to innovate and learn with others. It could be because of stress, of overload of administrative work, and lack of support in the professional development, especially when we're talking about AI. And this is something that the teachers are saying, those that answered that survey. And UNESCO too gave a report, the first report, talking only about teachers, and they warned about how urgent it is to create measures to bring in back teachers into the classrooms. And there are projections of the deficit that we will have of teachers, and the governments have been talking and working towards sustaining the teachers. But here is clear, to attract and retain teachers, it doesn't even depend just on material conditions, but also real opportunities of learning, of professional acknowledgement. And also AI is already in the classroom. The teachers can see it as a challenge that they have to face, but it's already there, and is there with or without the teachers. And we have a huge responsibility and decision to make to be part of it. And that makes it a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity. We can see students using AI to investigate, to write, and many times they use it unguided. And many face it with a lot of fear. And that's what teachers have told us, and we're surrounded by many myths of how AI works, how do you use it. Some would say, I would like to go back and that this didn't arrive, but AI is here to stay. And the difference is made by teachers. The question is not if it's going to arrive, but how are we going to work with AI? And here we see this huge opportunity to use it as a leverage to strengthen our teachers, to have more time, to collaborate better and more. And what is key for us, and we have seen in experience, is to give again the position of the teacher as a leader in education. I'm going to talk about what is Chile Más, and how we face these challenges that Margarita just talked about to develop this project of Chile Más Online. Chile Más is an alliance, is an organization that arose from between Chile and the state of Massachusetts. We have been working together for more than 10 years, connecting innovation, leadership, and education. It's a policy that has been strong throughout already 4 governments in Chile. The idea is to be part of innovation at the global stage. And in that sense, we have worked with the belief that transferring knowledge, technology, and science is key for the growth of Chile. That's how Chile Más Education came to be, and was the first project of Chile Más, because it was born from this conviction that you cannot give knowledge and innovation without a good education. So we started there, working with teachers. And we call on the public sector and also the private sector. How can we, through collaboration internationally, strengthen education in Chile? So we decided to invest in teachers and give them this strategic relevance. Up until today, that dream has become a real impact. More than 5,000 teachers have been part of these online courses, and more than 100 teachers have also gone in person to the US through our different programs. We collaborate with different universities in Boston, Massachusetts. Of course, the most recognized are Harvard, MIT, Boston College, also with Columbia. And we have been able to establish this network of alumni that have been part of our program, and they are the ones that make the impact grow in Chile. And that's our purpose, to be able to drive the capital of our teachers into these connections. So these are the programs, you can see them. We have teachers exchange, also some collaborations with the universities for research. We are developing a leadership course, and you will see that in another lecture, and also online. I will talk about Chile Más Online. It was born 3 years ago almost. This is going to be our 3rd version. And it started with this question: how can we give teacher development to every country, every corner of Chile? What we were learning in Boston and bring it to Chile, and give it not just to those who could go to the US. So it was born in 2024 thanks to an alliance with a startup that is Secrets Learning, that you will also learn more about in another presentation. And we were able to have this first course. We had more than 1,500 teachers working with us. 88% finished the course, and 7 of them were to Boston. Projects like the one you heard in last presentation was one of those. So we witnessed that there is a need, and when the teacher recognizes it, they become a pedagogical leader. And last year, 2025, thanks to our alliance with Caja de los Andes, it could expand even more. And we arrived to almost 4,000 teachers, more than 400 schools throughout Chile. And again, we had this immersive experience, and 10 teachers went to Boston. This is really important, and I'm going to stay a bit here. This program has 3 keys. Those are our pillars for our proposal to help teachers to develop and become pedagogical leaders. They should be asynchronic, but also have a component of social work by working in person. They are online, but they are the content is online, but they are there in person. We have a constant feedback, and they work constantly in real cases, in practical cases. Some are individual, some are groupal, and we connect them with experience of experts in different universities from the world. Here is an example. These are the selfies that they send each week. And they share that this is real. They are there and they are working in different challenges in these circles of learning. And they learn together, not alone, and they resolve with challenges that make sense to their context. What did they learn in this course? To plan better using AI as a support, to design more differentiated assessments, and also support their students according to how AI is being used by the students and how they can guide them in this ethical use. And these were real problems. The teacher of all of this is really important, Sebastián Marambio, from Circus Learning. And we also collaborated with experts from Harvard and MIT. And the third ingredient in this program is that they go from the local classroom to the world. And finally, a group of teachers can go for a week to the US. And this is not like a prize. This is not a touristic journey. They go there to work. They share their project. They connect with other experts. They get feedback. They go to different schools to look classes. They go to museums, to labs, to the universities, and connect with experts. And at the end of the day, what moves us is to be able to reinforce this professional identity and make these teachers become leaders. And we have seen it through through how they see themselves. Margarita is going to talk about those results now. This is going to be really hard to make it like really concise, but if you want to know more about this, you can ask us, because there are so many that move us and that impact us of our teachers that we wanted to bring a small sample. In terms of numbers, the result was great. We trained more than 5,000 teachers, and 87% completed the course. This is a really high level for an online course. And I think the most important thing is it showed that we can boost leadership and collaboration in a course that is online and on a big scale. That was our objective. How can we make this more accessible and bring it to more places in Chile? These are also results, and I think that in the final survey, they would use the AI in their classroom. More than 90% said yes. And here, through their comments, we see that AI, was the tool, was the resource, but it's not that they just like the course. They found concrete changes in how they plan, how they evaluate, how they use their time, how they connect with their students, how they face their fears, and how they strengthen themselves as pedagogical leaders. Also, they say a lot about how important was for them to make this in a collaborative fashion, and how these groups that arose kept working afterwards together. This is one of the winners that went in the first year, and they helped us with checking all of our material for the second year of the course. He says something that is quite important, and he realized that with this, AI is profoundly human and can amplify what we do as teachers. It won't replace us, but amplifies our capacities of transforming realities. More than a course, it was an experience that transformed me, that showed me that when teaching mixed up with innovation creates something completely new. And here I want to show you the protagonists. Hello, I am Sandra Balcázar. I represent the school as Nuestra Señora de la Merced in the 6th region of Chile. The school is really vulnerable at the 80%, and this project was born because our students had really low results in Spanish and reading comprehension. So we use this platform thanks to the AI that is helping us to create new activities for our students. And we want to have an inclusive school, especially in Spanish and communication. This project was focused on the students, and I think that is like a legacy. It's like a fairy tale for us as a family. I had never gone outside of Chile, so for me, this has been an experience that is impossible to forget. To be with one of the two biggest universities in the MIT in Harvard and get to know closely what happens from Chileans to the vision that Chileans have, those who are also making story, is inspiration for the young people we work with. And to say, kids, it is possible, we can do it, and if you want, you also can. One of the things that I like the most is the support of Chile Más, and it opened doors to find people that also are driven to connect with more people, to learn more, to improve, and to connect with companies or persons that we would be the spam of the spam of the spam. Here we can have a conversation in a really friendly and easy way. I am Ricardo Valencia. I am teacher in a school. I love my job. I feel that teachers are those that really can change the world and help our students to cultivate themselves. I've been working since last year to connect some things in my school, and the opportunity that the project gave us, we presented. The idea was to use this platform with these strategies to optimize processes, to create or customize the learning for our students, create new strategies, and to leave bureaucracy a bit behind, because we have a lot of that here in Chile. I talked to a lot of teachers, to many people that are working on the same things, and we are exchanging strategies, but I still have not had enough time to process it all. There are many answers and many doors have been opened. Is what we think. It's not that, it's better than what you would think it is. But what I can use is this concept of, yes, you can.
And I want to show this last part. I know I have just a few minutes left, but in addition to this testimony that we gather while they were there, living this experience, that's so fascinating. For us, the most important thing has been the impact that we've seen in them afterwards, and how, when they came back to Chile, the goal of creating networks and to strengthen that teacher potential has been shown in how they have continuously built the network they created, how they have managed to share this experience. They created a podcast where they share their experience in Boston. They presented their projects in different seminars, and we heard some of them here, but there are other instances in which we've seen them presenting this project, the empowerment, the commitment, how they are still eagerly connected, and how they feel leaders and agents of taking pedagogical leadership to the classroom. And this provides a value, makes it worth it, makes sense, and it shows that this can be applied at a bigger scale. The most important thing that have us all here with the right support technology is an inclusion tool of hope and projection of future for our children, and even more if we take it to different parts of the country. And we've reflected on this. AI will never replace teachers, but can broaden our capacity of thinking, deciding, and leading better. And when technology is at the service of learning and collaboration and teacher leadership, it can be highly transformative. So I'll conclude by sharing that we are going to be replicating this program again in 2026 with the support of Caja Los Andes and Circles to reach 4,500 more teachers, and we hope that you'll in the future hear more testimonies such as the ones you heard today. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you to the second group for this presentation. The next group will talk about a co-design of a management system for the development of directive leadership at the local network in public education. The actors are Mario Uribe, Lorena Ramirez, and Lorena Ramirez from University of Diego Portales, and Juan Carlos Holguín from SLEP Yanquihue, Chile. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for participating, for attending these lectures, and a warm welcome to the organization for maintaining the effort after 15 years of doing this event related to leadership for us who are in education and those who are here. We're fascinated by it. It's part of our projects of day-to-day. My name is Mario Uribe, and I am a teacher of the School of Education of the Diego Portales University. I'm of the Leadership Department and Directorate, and I will share with you the work of the team that is on the screen. This is a work of 2 years. It was a FONDEF project that had as a goal what you see over there, to have a system of leadership development in a public education. If you come from a network of schools, there are some things that you can take away from here, because it is a closed system. And I'm going to share with you what this presentation will be about, because I want to make a really good use of the time, because later we have another presentation. This FONDEF project was led by the School of Education of this university, but it has collaborating entities as well. Ours, as you can see there, is CPEI, IP, Arauco, among others. They are related to the directive work, and also two associate entities that are working with us closely, which is the Directorate of Public Education and SLAP Yanquiwe, and with the pilot that we're going to present. When you think about a development system in public education, you see opportunities and challenges, and I'll share a couple here. We have evidence, a lot of evidence, when you create spaces for professional development. It impacts the quality of the schools, and also it creates an impact in the classroom. Another thing that is interesting to us is that in Chile we're working on this public education, and we have SLABs that have certain capabilities installed. We know these are systems that are just beginning, that have strengths, weaknesses, but we see that there are strengths in the directed teams, and that's what I want to share with you now. Where are we seeing the opportunities of improvement? The Chilean system, we know of it. It is highly documented. There are some issues of articulation in terms of the professional development of the directors. We have offers, but sometimes it's not really linked systemically. And this is the case, and we've been able to evidence that. Also, the fragmentation that exists and that is related to this management. And it's not helpful when we see a system that's closed, where you can try to aim to solve this fragmentation issue. And lastly, this is also had to do with our institutional political framework, where we don't have degrees focused on this, and those who are working on it, we believe there should be one. And also continuous improvement. This diversity that's not necessarily regulated has to do with the training of these principals, these directors. So basically the goal of this project that lasted 2 years was to create a system so that we can solve part of these incoherences and these integration issues of the initiatives that we already have. And when you create a system, what you try to do is give coherence to initiatives that are set locally, and in this case it was identifying what are those needs of principal training, and to do so we need profiles. We need to create opportunities of participation so that people can say and explore where are their weaknesses, and try to get those together with that training offer that helps them and supports them into improving in time. Our approach with the local service of education was a co-design, and this isn't just one conversation with the counterpart, but we try to find solutions with them. And this isn't something that you do in 1 or 2 days, or there's a group of specialists that says this is how you do it. There needs to be a conversation. So there is work behind that. And when you decide to co-design, there is more work. It requires more commitment from the parties. It is a sustained effort. It isn't just 1 week effort. It was an effort of a couple of years. In terms of temporality, the project started in June 2023 and ended August last year, 2025. So this is basically a summary of the entire experience. And we try to think about a management system, and we looked at compared literature and the pipelines and the different roadmaps of examples of other areas, where in the beginning you start seeing the leadership, you detect the leadership, and you select that, start working with them. And we see the opportunities where teachers can develop activities, initiatives, and it's not necessarily the director of the school. We know that regarding leadership, we have a lot of spaces where it can be developed. So the goal was to provide a roadmap to the project,
luego trabajar el
to
tema
develop
de
profiles
potenciales
and work
líderes,
on
luego ver
leader
las necesidades
potentials,
directivas que tenían los equipos y finalmente
look
un
at the
plan
needs
integrado
of
de
the
formación
principals, and
que
a
le permita al
plan
SLEP
of
o de
integration
distrito
and
escolar, como le dicen
training
en
that
otras
allows
partes
the
del mundo,
SLEP
¿no es
or
cierto?
school
Poder
districts or
gestionar
SLEPs in
el
Chile
desarrollo directivo.
to
Y ahí
work
están los
on that
componentes, lo que acabo de decir, los
leadership
perfiles primero,
of principals.
instrumentos de
These are the
identificación
profiles, the different tools for identification,
para detectar potenciales
to
líderes,
detect
instrumentos
possible
de diagnóstico
leaders
para
or
ver
potential
necesidades
leaders,
formativas de los actuales
diagnosis
líderes y una
to
sección dentro
understand
del sistema,
what's
es un
happening with the
sistema
current
online,
leaders, and
que permita
a
gestionar
system online that
SLEP
allows the management of
el sistema mismo.
SLEPs.
Aquí está lo primero que
This is
fíjense
the
que
first
hay un
thing,
profesional del SLEP, hay
and there's a
una primera
professional
cita y dice,
of
mire, lo
SLEP,
primero
so
sería
there's this
definir los
first
perfiles, o
person
sea,
who says, okay, the
porque
first thing that
cuando
we
uno
need to do is
conversa
to
con los equipos
define
directivos, no necesariamente, aunque sean
these
del
roles,
mismo
or
territorio,
because
están
sometimes although you
entendiendo
talk about with people, although they are from the same
su
territory, they
objetivo,
are
digámoslo así,
necessarily
dentro de la
talking about
escuela
the same goal within the
uniformemente.
school. It is not
No
uniform,
estandarizadamente, sino que con criterios
not
comunes.
necessarily standardized, but
Y
they need to
nosotros
have common
finalmente
criteria. So
levantamos 8 perfiles directivos. El servicio
we have
civil
8
tiene general
profiles
uno,
of,
¿no? Que es el que tiene que ver con la selección del
directors.
director o la directora.
First, the
Pero
principal
hoy
of the
día tenemos
school,
mucho más allá, incluso lo que
but today is much more than
normativa
that,
indica.
more than what the
La
regulation
normativa indica
establishes.
4.
The regulation
Y nosotros
establishes
levantamos
4,
esto. Y
and
aún
this is what
así, los que
we
estuvimos a
came
cargo
up
del
with.
diseño inicial nos quedamos cortos
And with
y
the
tuvimos que
initial
levantar 2
design,
más.
it wasn't
De los
enough.
que,
We had
en el
to include 2
codiseño
more.
nos
In that
aparecieron
co-design
par de
stage,
perfiles que son los
2
que
more
están ahí. Se alcanzan a
profiles
ver, ¿no? Para no tener que perder el tiempo.
were necessary to
Tengo
be
tiempo
included,
acotado,
as
me
you can
pidieron
see over there. I don't have a lot of time,
La
so
estructura
I
de los
hope that you
perfiles es
can
muy
read them.
interesante porque tiene la misión, por
So the
supuesto,
structure is
el
very
rol,
interesting
su
because
marco
it includes the
ético-moral, estamos en
mission,
educación,
the
por lo tanto, el tema de
framework,
la
moral
justicia
and
social para nosotros es
ethical,
completamente
social
relevante.
justice for us
Las
is really
prácticas de
relevant,
liderazgo propiamente
the
tal, los
leadership
conocimientos
practices,
profesionales que están a la
professional
mano
knowledge at
de
hand,
esas
and
prácticas y habilidades interpersonales. ¿no es cierto?
interpersonal
Que es la
abilities
parte que
or
tiene que ver
skills,
más con el manejo de
which is
equipo y
related
grupo.
to the management of teams or
Y los
groups.
primeros hallazgos que teníamos eran más o
The
menos
first
evidentes, pero que se
findings
los quiero
were
compartir.
quite
Esta
evident, but I want to share them
superposición
with
de
you,
cargos,
the
pero también de
superposition of
roles. Esto
roles,
apareció muy
positions.
rápidamente. Un nivel de desagregación de prácticas
There's
entre
a
algunas con
disaggregation of
definiciones más generales y otras
practices, some
más
more
específicas,
general
entonces no
conditions,
hay un
other more
equilibrio ahí,
specific, so there was no
que no
balance there.
respetaba necesariamente los
It didn't really
contextos,
respect
en
context.
algunos casos
In
demasiado
some
generales
cases, it
para
was
los
too
contextos
general
tan
for
diversos que hay incluso
diverse
dentro de los
contexts
servicios
that
locales
are inside the
de
local
educación.
services of
Y el
education,
tema de la
and
factibilidad, ¿no es cierto? O sea,
feasibility.
esta amenaza de cómo,
Basically, that threat
de cómo un tercero que me
on
puede
how a third
eventualmente
party that
evaluar
can
entiende mi
possibly assess me, how
Esto no es una
do
cuestión
they
menor
understand my
porque
role.
dentro de la
And this is
micropolítica
very
escolar lo
important because
sabemos,
in the
y de los
school
sistemas, cómo
micropolicy
proyectan mi
and
cargo,
in
las expectativas
systems
de mi
is
cargo es muy
how
importante,
it
¿no?
is expected or what's
Luego,
expected from my role, from my
levantado,
position. That
digámoslo
mine is
así,
very
este
important.
mapa de
Then
competencias,
we
viene la identificación
created
de los
this map of
potenciales líderes.
skills, and
Esta es
then
la
we
parte,
have
yo
the
diría, más
identification of
innovadora del proyecto,
potential
¿ah?
leaders, and that's the most
Porque en
innovative
Chile
part of the
hay muchos
project, because in
lugares
Chile there
donde
are a
no
lot of
postulan
places where
directores. Sin
principals
embargo,
don't
nosotros
apply,
sabemos que hay talento
but
en ese
we know
territorio. Entonces la pregunta es cómo
there is
detectamos
talent in
ese
that
talento.
territory.
Estamos
So
esperando que
the question
venga
is, how do I
de otro lugar.
to
Entonces,
identify that talent so that we
este
don't
es el
have to
objetivo de este componente,
take it
¿ah?
from somewhere
Identificar
else? And that's the
potenciales
goal
líderes.
of this component, to
Levantamos
identify
también
those
habilidades
possible
para
leaders.
13 habilidades para poder detectarla.
We have
Generamos instrumentos.
13 skills to
Tuvimos
detect those
profesores que se
leaders with
presentaron
different tools. We had
voluntariamente
teachers that
a saber
showed
cómo era
up
su nivel de
voluntarily. They wanted to know
liderazgo.
what was their leadership
Y por lo
level.
tanto,
This is
ya
a
nos
practice,
sirve, ¿no es cierto?
and it was
La
useful.
plataforma, y esto está en una plataforma. Aquí simplemente
And this
una
is part of
muestra,
a
después
platform,
lo
and this
lo
is
podemos
just a
mirar en
sample.
más
Maybe
detalle, pero
we
la
can take a look at
plataforma
it
genera un
later.
reporte
But the
para ese
platform
director,
creates
o
a
para el
report for
perdón, para este caso, para el
the
postulante, para el
for that
potencial líder.
applicant.
Después está todo el tema de los diagnósticos de necesidades
And
formativas,
then we have the
que esto ya
diagnosis
es para
of
los
training
equipos directivos.
needs, which is for
Ah.
directed
Y el
teams.
director se
And
autoevalúa y el equipo
the
se
principal and the
autoevalúa,
rest
el
of the
director o
team
la
do a
directora habla de su
self-assessment. The
equipo,
principal talks about their team,
y del director o de la
and
directora habla la persona de la
the
UATP
people
del
from
nivel
the
intermedio.
UATP talks about the principal of
Determinamos
the
esto de la
intermediate
UATP
level.
porque los mismos
And we determined
directores dijeron,
UATP because it
en
was
una
the
consulta que
directors,
hizo,
I mean the
¿en
principals who
quién
said,
confía usted del nivel
who do
intermedio
you trust at
para
that
que hable de
intermediate
usted u
level
opine usted
so
su
that they
desarrollo
talk
profesional.
about you, or
Y
talk about your
los
professional
directores y las
development.
directoras nos
And
dijeron
our principal
en el área
said
técnica del nivel
the
intermedio,
technical
en la
area of
UATP.
the
Entonces
intermediate
la
level,
UATP es la que
UATP.
opina
So they are the
directamente
ones who
de ellos. Acuérdense que
give
esto
us
es
the
una
opinion
visión de
about
su
the
desarrollo
principals. And this is
profesional.
a view
No es
of
una
their
evaluación del
professional development.
desempeño de
It's
las
not
mesas,
a
de su desarrollo
performance
profesional.
assessment
Y ahí tenemos los
or how they
instrumentos,
fulfill
un
their goals.
autodiagnóstico primero,
Those
un
are the
reporte
instruments.
tercero,
Self-diagnosis
que
is the
le
first thing,
llamamos cuando
third-party
un externo
report,
me opina de mi rol, de mi cargo,
when
y
somebody
una
talks
cierta
or
priorización de
makes an
dimensiones.
opinion about my role.
Entonces aquí esto es lo que ve un director,
And this is
un
what the
reporte
principal
individual,
sees,
pero
sees
también el equipo directivo
this
tiene la
individual report,
posibilidad
but also the
de
team
ellos como equipo
or the
directivo y
principals,
yo
they
como
have the
persona, como
possibility,
parte del equipo directivo,
they
decir,
and
mira,
me as
yo
part
creo
of
que
that
mi
team,
equipo
we
directivo
can say, I
requiere
think that my team requires this
algún tipo de desarrollo.
kind of development,
Ocupamos,
for example.
esto no lo
And
dije y es interesante decirlo,
this is
porque
something
si
that's
hablamos de
interesting to
coherencia
mention
del
that I didn't say
sistema
earlier,
político
but
institucional,
when we talk about the
ocupamos como
coherence of the political
referencia las
institutional
dimensiones del marco de la buena
system,
dirección.
we look at the
O sea,
framework
si el día de
of
mañana,
good
porque ustedes saben que del
directorates,
marco también se desprenden
and
los perfiles y los
from those
perfiles de
frameworks
selección.
we
Entonces,
take the
si el
profiles
día de
and the
mañana cambia el
profiles of
marco, bueno,
selection. So if
cambiarán las
tomorrow the
dimensiones,
framework
cambiará esto.
changes,
Entonces,
dimensions
es capaz
change,
también el
these will
sistema
change.
de tener
So
esa
the
elasticidad.
system is capable of having
Y
this
también vemos
elasticity.
los datos agregados.
And
O
we
sea,
also
en el nivel
see
SLEP, en
aggregated
algún
data.
momento el SLEP hoy
So
día puede
at
decir,
some point,
las
SLABs can
directoras de
say,
jardines
okay,
infantiles
directors of
mayoritariamente requieren, por
kindergarten
autoevaluación y percepción de
require
terceros,
us
este
from the
foco
self-assessment and from
de
third-party
avance en
perception,
sus capacidades,
this
en sus
following
habilidades, en sus
approach
capacidades.
or in their
Lo
knowledge,
puede decir también,
in
o sea,
their
puede
skills,
tomar
etc.
a todos los directivos o segmentarlo.
So you can take
Escuelas
all
básicas,
the directors, all
profesores
principals
encargados
of all
rurales,
areas,
la diversidad,
primary
ustedes saben,
schools, rural schools.
en el espacio público están todas las escuelas.
In the public space,
Todas,
all
las
schools are
rurales, los
included.
jardines, están todos los niveles.
Rural,
Escuelas,
kindergarten,
cárceles, etcétera. Nosotros no hemos
preschool.
llegado todavía ni a las hospitalarias ni a las cárceles.
But
Pero
we
sí ya
haven't reached
estamos bastante
hospitals
avanzados en
or
términos de, los
jails,
perfiles,
but
por lo menos que hemos levantado. Y después
those
viene
are
el
part of the
componente 4,
profiles
y ya
that
voy
we've
a ir
collected.
cerrando,
And lastly, to
que
conclude,
tiene que ver
the
con la
fourth component
planificación y el
is related to
desarrollo,
planning and
de las habilidades y los
development
conocimientos de
of
liderazgo.
skills and knowledge of
Y esta
leadership.
parte fue también muy
And this
interesante porque
was
aquí no
very
solamente se
interesting
reconocieron
because
los
we
cursos
didn't only
tradicionales,
recognize the traditional
que el director o
courses
la directora o alguien del
that the
equipo directivo va a un
principal or
taller
somebody from
o va a
that
un seminario.
team
Aquí
goes to a
también se
workshop,
reconoce
works, or
el
attends a
trabajo que
seminar.
hace la UATP
Here
con ellos.
we acknowledge
Ustedes
the
saben
work
que
that
las UATP
UATP
dentro
does
del
with
SLEP
them. The
tienen conversaciones
UATPs within
permanentes con sus
SLABs
directores.
have permanent
Entonces,
conversations
si
with their
un
principals. So
director o un
if a
equipo
principal
directivo
or
con su
a
UATP tienen
team
una
of the
conversación
principal with the
programada de 3
UATP have a
meses sobre
program
el tema de
conversation of 3
convivencia,
months about
eso calza en
the
desarrollo profesional.
coexistence of the
Y
students,
por lo
that's
tanto, eso
part of the
también se
development,
considera
and that's
como parte
also
de su ficha.
considered as part
Cada
of
director y
their
directora o miembro del equipo directivo tiene su
sheet.
propia hojita
Each
por
member,
sistema,
each principal
que
has
no
their
habla
own
de su
sheet on the
currículum,
system
habla
that
sobre su
includes not only
desarrollo
about their
profesional.
curriculum but about
¿Mm?
their professional
Y eso
development.
también se contempló en el
And
sistema. Y aquí
that's
están las conclusiones
something that's
para
included
poder
in
ir
the system
a
as well. And these are some
tratar de cumplir lo
conclusions
que
so
nos
that
pide la
I can
organización.
comply with
Ahí están
what's
los
requested
logros,
from the
diría, más
organization. So
destacados
these are
por
the achievements
los
that I can
colegas
highlight
del
from
SLEP,
the colleagues of
representar los
SLEPs,
directores.
in particular the
Es un
principals.
sistema que fue
It's a
valorado.
system that was
Hay
of
herramientas
high
que otorgan
value.
esa
We have
coherencia. Hay
tools that
instrumentos
give that
que son capaces de
coherence. There is
detectar
an instrument that is capable
técnicamente, o sea, logramos en
of
2 años levantar
technically, in
instrumentos
2
que sean
years,
confiables, por
we
supuesto, que
created
nos den información
tools and instruments that
que
are
den pistas
trustworthy
con bajo riesgo de
with
equivocarse.
low
La
risk
plataforma es
of making a
flexible.
mistake, and the
¿Qué
platform
desafíos
is
tenemos?
flexible.
Bueno, que
What's
se
the
use por una
challenges
parte y
of
que
the
no se
system?
convierta en un ciclo
That
burocrático.
is used,
Eso es muy importante.
that
Y
is
en
not
el
part
espacio
of
público
the
eso
bureaucracy,
es una tensión
that
que
it won't
está
become that,
ahí,
and
permanente, ¿no es cierto?
that's a risk that is always
Vinculación
there.
con otras instituciones,
Also,
o sea, que la
to link with
información que
other
tengamos
institutions,
aquí,
that the information that we
entonces
have
sea
here
capaz de
can
tomarla la
be
agencia, tomarla el
used
CPIP, tomarla
by
otras instituciones
SSAP,
y
by
usarla
other
como parte de
agencies,
su
and use it
agenda.
as part of
Y
their agenda.
obviamente
And
fortalecer
of
el nivel
course,
intermedio.
to
Voy a
strengthen the
cerrar
intermediate level.
con un
I'm
pequeño
going to
testimonio.
close with a testimony of
Yo
a
creo
minute,
que es importante
but I think it's important
decirlo,
to
porque
share this,
esta es la voz de mis
because this
colegas,
is the voice of my colleagues.
no sé si se ve
I don't know if you can see it. I need help because I don't know if the video is going to show. Can you help me,
porque yo lo estoy
please?
viendo aquí en mi pantalla, pero no
I
lo
see it
veo.
here in my computer, but not on the screen.
Sí, es un videito cortito.
Yeah, it's really short.
¿Dicho ahí? ¿En play? Ah, bueno, dale. Ahí está apareciendo. Ahí. Ahí, dale nomás. Ahí están mis colegas.
Here you can see my colleagues.
Minuto y medio.
It's just a minute and a half. This co-construction of working in the territory that has to do with focus group, and we were working coordinately with the UATP, and together we created profiles that show the work of our leaders. It was part of a pilot that has a national reach. It's a key document because it was created from the experience that we created here in Yanquiwe. Is of high participation. All of our directive teams were here, and we were looking and analyzing how we can change the education systems for learning. We have been able to recognize the practices that have been successful, promoting them and creating a space for new leadership. And the future leaders in this co-construction of work created new topics that were not in our pilot, and this has been incredible for all of us. Thank you for the Public Education Directory and the universities, because we were able to complete this project. It has been a really interesting project for the team and also for the local service in Yanquiwe.
Ministerio de Educación, Gobierno de Chile. Chile avanza contigo.
Ministry of Education. So just to say goodbye and to thank you all for your attention, we can have a discussion. You have here my email, and with these QR codes you can see on the left this experience on quality of education, and it's systemized, and on the left it's a book that we just published on public education. There are many articles, and one of those is for principals, is free, so you can just download it following the second QR code. And with that, I say goodbye. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your presentation. Next presentation is called Leadership and Territorial Collaboration to Improve, Creating Networks and Educational Territories. The author is Juan Pablo Cuelpil from the Universidad Católica Silva Enríquez, Camila Retamal y Viviaja Hochman. They are part of the same team. Please, the floor is yours.
¿Aló?
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you are okay. I'm here to present many of our team here. I see them here. I'm really happy that you're here supporting us. From Salited, we are going to work, as Nestor said, during the whole process of Sanited, one of the leadership centers. in many lines, but one is going to be fundamental for us, and it has to do with territorial networks and the work in those territories. So, to just move ahead, let me present our team, one before the other. Camila is licensed in education. She's a PE teacher. She also has a master's in curriculum development. She has learned about psychology in the University of the Basque countries. And she works also with the group of Antofagasta. Juan Pablo is part of Universidad Católica Silva Enriquez. He is in charge of the lab SITSE. He has a PhD in education of Pennsylvania State University, and he also has a master's in company management. He researched in areas as educational leadership and further improvement of education. So now I want to invite you to come here and talk to us about networks and territories. So please, the floor is for Camila, please. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for the presentation. I'm here to present the Center of Leadership for Transformation of our territories in education. This is a strategy with the University of Silva Enriquez, University Católica, and also the Ministry of Education to strengthen the capabilities of leadership for students and teachers, and promoting thus an improvement that is continuous and sustainable, but grounded in the reality of the different contexts. Given the paradigm of our society, we want to be a bridge between applied research and the challenges that public education in Chile faces. Today, as Vivi said, we are going to talk about two of the lines that are key for the center. I am in charge of line 5. This is looking into formation, trajectories, and development of skills in terms of the school system. That is the most complex one, where leadership is not thought as something that is static and stagnant, but as a practice that needs to be sustained through territorial networks that must be strong. This strategic way of viewing it helps us to to look into formation that is decontextualized to be contextualized in local and real places. Following this line, we want to design an ecosystem for bachelors and different professionals through relationships with organizations. Our strategic focus is to answer the challenges of the policy of reactivation of teaching and also well-being between the community. Our structure is not rigid, is following specific courses in an e-learning structure design so leadership can be applied. So the leaders apply what they learn from these courses, so it develops their continuing education in the classroom. CELITED is looking systematically and recognizes leadership as a formation that doesn't occur in a void. it depends on the territory it occurs, and it needs a network that supports them to guarantee success. So through sessions of learning and periods of action, these leaders share their actions and solve problems that are common for the territory. As we can see here in this image, leaders complement themselves and work with leaders of students, of parents, in this practical way of working together. We define leadership as the attributes that start at the classroom. They require the opportunity to move other members. Thus, we can see how the leaders work together, so we can see what's happening in different contexts and keep moving ahead and working. Our architecture in teaching starts with pedagogical management. We look into the use of data for decision making, then how we live in our communities with our students and how they live together, and finally looking into strategic drive of how we move our resources through our territorial networks. All of that under the view of collaboration for learning in network, where collaboration is seen first as this small cycle that you can see here, where at the beginning we see a group of planification that can develop the different sessions of learning. These sessions are in-person meetings where during a full day, for instance, in the school year and in the territories, we generate different actions. For instance, in PI1, we have a framework of action where we share information. Then in the intermediate step, in PA2, we can see how this moves in the process, and then in part 3, we can make a final assessment to find parts that can be improved. All of this in different periods of action in which we use the cycle of PA, and we consider planning, making and assessing, and then adjusting. We need to think on CELITED as leadership, and in this territorial leadership, like native forest, is not just enough to plant trees alone, but we need to give them different technical capabilities that are individual. First, we need to strengthen the base that connects to the roots, the full network of collaboration, and make sure that the soil has the nutrients to be secure psychologically and so on, so the ecosystem can grow healthy and regenerate on its own at the same time. Now, this training works together with Line 1, that's led by Juan Pablo Cuelpin, who will talk about that line.
Thank you for being here in this afternoon with AC. Pablo asked me to talk first, and I accept the challenge because maybe later we can share a coffee and talk more in depth afterwards. And as one of the main leadership centers financed by the Ministry of Education, and since we have our own challenges from the academia, the ministry also has different challenges. We have a new minister, teacher teams also have different challenges. And I think all of those presentations of collaborations, the work of Red, and all of these with the AI on top of it. So thank you for all those presentations. But what is it like to work in red or network? And we're working as a network now. It's different though now because I'm here at a podium. You are listening to me. The interaction is basically just listening to the lecture, right? But we need to increase that level, and not just because I want to, but because the regulation establishes so. It invites to do a work in network, and it seems that we're only focusing on that work that the red does or the network does within schools, but now we have the challenge of considering the territories, the context, the locations, etc. That changes the configuration and the way that we think about this red work, and we have to add the local services of public educations that are going. Some have more experience, others not as experienced as others. So I invite you now to think about how to work as a network. It means collaboration based on motivation, interest, skills, capacities. These integrations form groups and subgroups motivated by the same motivation, skills, etc. And there are people who play the role of bridge, joining those groups together. And those are where the leaders come from. A lot of the literature about leadership and school leadership in particular talks about influence and leadership. What's trending topic? Who are the opinion leaders? Guess who? Well, those who have the most followers. But you follow people based on certain skills. Some will follow some teams, others other. And I'll share more about that because I have specific evidence to back that up. So basically, we have several schools in a territory. Schools can be categorized in colors or maybe make it anonymous. They're going to ask us to do this anonymously. And these schools have their own interactions with it and also interactions with each other. So if you extrapolate that, you'll see another territory, another one, and another one. And which means, and I can attest that many of the teachers and principals have interacted with somebody in Antofagasta with the technology today can maybe talk to somebody in the south of Chile. And that's where the territorial collaborations come up. And between territories, which seems very feasible to do so with technological progress and with AI today. But what's happening here? What's evidence showing us? And let's focus on this. Let's look at the educational unit. If I ask all of the actors that are part of a educational unit, teachers, principals, who do you talk to most in terms of topics, right? So let's look at two different topics. Teaching, management, if we divide that in two. So teaching and management, and this is real evidence. If you want to read the article, I can send it to you. If I ask them about management, this is the pair that always comes up. Principal, that's highlighted, and then the UTP chief. The green arrows are in the first place, but some are not there. Some are in the inspectors. But this is strange. Let's extrapolate that. And within schools and between schools. And in teaching, the network task changes. It changes the order as well for obvious reasons. And guess who it is? The UTP chief. Is anybody here from the UTP department? No? No one? Okay, yeah. It is overwhelming, but how can we broaden that network work so that it's not only centralized on specific roles, because the role of leaders in that aspect is evident, but since we've talked about this the entire time about having finite resources and limited time, it's important that we broaden that collaboration and integrate more people as part of this network with more or less technology and with more or less AI. And that is a challenge, and let's look at the positive aspects. A lot of new opportunities come up because each one of you who are here today, and we can add some more levels, political, academia, and you as principals, this all becomes resources for all of those who are interested in continuous improvement, strengthening certain processes of teaching, learning, and many other problems that come up throughout the school year and educational cycle. We cannot forget that by law lasts for 12 years. So let's go back to this logic that's behind the network work. So technology evolves. The current president called the elected president with the phone, this old school phone. That evolved. We have different phones now, office phones. I don't sponsor any brand, but they have the Cisco brands, and they did more things than just calling on the phone. But guess which is the technological tool we all have and that we all use? Well, the phone, the cell phone. And you can have everything there. Emails, not many people use it to call. You use it for other tasks. So let's think about the many things that you need to do in our offices. The computers were desk computers, then it was portable. Now what do we have? We have tablets, iPad. Many of you might be using those. That's how technology evolves. But these were also always support tools. And during the pandemic, social media, and how many WhatsApp groups you had back then? And the phone would ring over and over, 24/7, Saturday decided, and that reminds me that I need to leave a lot of group chats on WhatsApp. And it's good for better for worse. So it has a lot of uses. Zoom was really big because it connected people. It was used to teach, to do the classes everywhere throughout the country, in the world. And of course, now we are hyper connected, and with localization, messaging, etc. And since we are here for AI in this summit, guess what? We're not only interacting between people, but now these are not support tools. We interact with AI. It answers questions. It creates things, which is why it's called generative AI. It generates things. It is part of our work, for better or for worse, whether we want it or not. And that's the invitation I've made throughout the day. But AI also will interact with each other. Ethical aspects was something that was mentioned. Information will be shared. Sometimes people use more than one AI, and that's the challenge. Because with these characteristics of the network work and with the development of skills that Camila mentioned, we need to add technologies, and technologies that interact with people, entities, and with AI. So that's my invitation. That is a challenge. And let's look at the glass half full, because it means there are endless opportunities. Pablo, Fabiana, I comply with the time. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, everybody, for the 4 lectures. Unfortunately, we won't have time for questions, but each one of them left their contact information during their presentations, so you can contact them if you'd like. Now I'll give the floor to our moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, all of you who participated. And we're going to continue with the program of this afternoon. We're going to present the next panel that addresses expectation and experiences of school leadership, supported by AI. Participating, Michael Johanek, Director of the Inter-American Network of Educational Leadership, RILE. Magdalena Fernandez, Senior Director of Growth at Global School Leaders. And Jose Manuel Mesa, Physics Professor and Data Analyst of the Chuquicamata School in Calama, Chile. This panel will be moderated by Mr. Felipe Coloma, candidate to Doctor in Education of the Catholic University of Chile. We invite you to take a seat so that we can begin with this conversation with the panel. Felipe, you have the floor to begin with this panel.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank the level of commitment of each one of you. This has been a really intense meeting, and I can only say that I feel gratitude for all of you. This panel that we will have here, they were already presented, but I want to highlight an element. We had a series of presentations with people that are in different levels in school, founders, and also we want to create here a dialogue in the different levels. Therefore, we have some questions that are cross-reference for them all and see how they see them from their different levels. So first, what do they expect in terms of using AI? Second, what expectations do we have in terms of leadership? That is what we have been talking today. And what are you doing and what have you learned in terms of leadership and the opportunities that AI brings? So please, Jose, I will ask you to start. He is in the level of establishing schools. Jose, please, if I can help you. Hello, yes, can you hear me? Good afternoon. I am really grateful of have been invited and be here in this panel with Magdalena, with Mike and Felipe. Thank you so much. I am Jose Manuel Mesa. I work in the school Chuquicamata. Chuquicamata is a school that exists in the Antofagasta region in Calama, the city of Calama. And what I will start with the first question, and it's an idea, the answer. How AI exists with leadership, and I've seen two ideas. First, it helps to move leadership into different levels, and it moves it into the medium level, and it impacts precisely in the classroom, and it makes it more certain. It forces new conversations coming from a model that makes us trace what we do. And AI won't substitute leadership. That depends on people with ethics and governance. Our expectations. First, from our institutions, today we are capable through AI to reassign and free and reclaim time. Especially for the instruction nuclei, where the learning occurs for our students. Also, the possibility of going from data into evidence and decision making in an informed manner. And it starts with a cycle of improvement. Many maybe understand it as a short cycle, but as part of finding it, you need a hypothesis, an action plan, and have all of that registered. So AI today allows us to create all of those documents, and in intermediate leadership where things happen. And what matters here is to see what happens with our capabilities. AI changes in a way our architecture of the management work. Who can do what changes, and with what type of support. In governance, governance is really important in this point in particular. Today we have the possibility of visualizing information, but what's important is not just the data, but what questions allows the data to form. What are the questions or challenges in prompt that habilitates that information? And also the quality and security. It's important to understand that it's people who make decisions. AI can, have some biases, and we need to regulate that, and they come from the algorithm in a way, and ethics and governance of data. We cannot give all of the information, especially information that allows to identify our students directly. We need to be really, really careful with that. First, we have the development of AI and what we can do with it. And also, we need to have a working model that allows us to work in a trustworthy manner and to protect sensible information. In the right side, we have the mechanisms of AI and how it supports leadership. We have the models of the language, of the processing of natural language that helps us to synthesize with construction, for instance, minutes. It helps us to restructure the way we are working. Also, we can identify who is the owner of what, and also to be accountable for different steps. And with that, we can decide our different paths of action. And also human supervision. That allows us to learn as a system and not as an isolated effort. That occurs a lot, right? AI can create proposals, but it depends on people because they make the decisions and they are the ones that answer facing these challenges. In our school today, we are implementing an initiative that allows us to assist in the middle level leadership with what AI allows. So maybe it doesn't appear here when you are walking in the classroom, the weekly meeting, the different gaps with the teachers, and also what happens with the chiefs in different departments. When we go into the classroom, we are not there to look into what the teacher is doing really, but we go to see what is happening in this instruction nuclei. What happens between the students, the teachers, and the content of information. So we are going to see some things previous and then we can translate it into objective descriptions. Then teachers, when they identify gaps, they activate a model of decision making, and we call it DECIDE. It's an acronym, but it's written as a word that means decide. The idea is to improve the decision making continuously. That's the model that we use. It has 8 steps, and they are actually quite easy to use, especially the tools. It goes from identify a gap, a question for instruction, and create the plan of action, monitoring, tracing, accountability, and all of that is supported by AI that has been trained for this. Of course, maintaining remembrance of ethics, because we're working with minors. The teachers and the whole administrative body can work with this, so they can generate evidence, documents that help us learn as organization. So what this assistant does is not give you the answer. They give suggestions and make the cycle makes the cycle keep moving. We don't go from the problem to the solution. Especially when we see a result that is negative, we then say, okay, we need more feedback. It doesn't work like that here. We first identify the problem, the evidence to give an answer that would be consistent with this problem, and then it goes into action plan. So in time, it could take 15 minutes to create the whole plan, and then it is stored in the system learns, and that helps us to keep moving the process ahead through accountability. Finally, this assistant guides the step-by-step, gives examples or suggestions, and suggestions where the teams take the definition that is the most appropriate for the context, the abilities, and so on that they want to develop. And lastly, what we are doing, we are implementing this cycle of continuous improvement in terms of education. We do this weekly, consistently, permanently, and that also creates an adjustment in the work culture. We create reports with statistics. That's part of my work. So we can install skills and capabilities. We are also creating more literacy in terms of using data. And without processes, AI is going to augment noise. And what we want is to make processes more consistent. And the change here comes in the routine. AI is a support. And conditions and opportunities that we see. Conditions, governance, privacy, tracking, capabilities. And if we don't have capabilities with the AI, it's going to just move ahead and lead us wherever. So once we stabilize the process, we are in condition to actually accelerate. And in terms of opportunities, base of know-how for the institution, where we can have different instances of getting information or documents that are outside of our network, and also comparing with what we have internally. And then last phrase that I want to say, what helps is that AI helps leadership to be better. Thank you. Thank you, Jose. Talking about the expectations that we have, maybe talk with the public where we can find more information. Magdalena, I want to give you the floor, and I would love to know about this vision. And maybe you can talk about your institution. I will right now put your presentation in the background. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being here today in such a day that has been really intense. Good things are brief, and when they are brief, it makes it double good. I will keep it brief then. So who am I? So you know where I come from. I am Magdalena. I work in Global School Leaders, international NGO that looks into school leadership in Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. And to answer the questions that Felipe invited us to think about, I'm going to cheat a bit. I'm going to go back and propose to think about AI and technology. We also need to understand access. the access that today we have. Global School Leaders makes a survey each year globally where we can find the voices of the principals in the 3 regions where we work: Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And last year it was looking into technology. So besides taking data points about the access, we took the voices and experiences of our principals in terms of usage and the ways technology is or isn't present in the schools. This is an open resource. You can download it. It's in English and Spanish. Again, I would like to highlight 3 points. Some are more obvious, others maybe will make us reflect a bit more. The first one is access. As I said, today half of the schools don't have the needed access in technology. And when we talk about access, we are thinking in devices, in access to internet, and the knowledge to use those devices and connection. So the 3 things are present is less than half of the schools in the global south. So if we start thinking what is happening in some cases, it's also think about what is not being able to happen in others. So it's not putting it aside, but it's between parentheses, because I think it's quite relevant. Another of the points is interest. There are some ideas that sometimes there is more resistance to use new technology. They don't like it. And actually, this survey says it's the other way around. In these 3 regions, the directive teams want to use it in school. They think it's going to be great for the learning of our students to manage the schools. So maybe the access is not there, the interest is there, is generalized. To have access, that's interest. And the next one is training. The survey asked if they have been trained in technology and the type of training they have gotten, if they got it. From the 3 regions, Asia is the one that has more training. Latin America and Africa are lagging behind, and they are receiving information that is looking into basic skills, not for the level needed for the principal teams. So we need to work in improving the technology. Improving access to a technology. And if we were to think about training, is thinking about training in a more specific way in terms of the roles they will play in the different teams. For instance, the role of the principal, and then how we use these trainings to demystify, and how also they allow us to make decisions. Now, thinking back into that, I want to give some of the points that we think about when we think about this technology. It has to do with a line of go deeper and go faster into the impact in education interventions. So we have a case that is going to be published soon enough in Sierra Leone, where we use this technology and we compare an intervention using the technology and another without it, and where we use the technology, there's better and higher impact. So it's not just technology because, but also how it impacts the learning of students. That's the thing that we are most interested in. And then later, there's another point that we worked a lot on, and it's to create better exchanges and improve the ability to bring out the voices of our managers and directors. We have Principal Speaks. That's a platform that through AI, proposes that the different teams can share stories of what they are doing. So they talk with a chat. They don't need to write a full story. They just need to answer some questions, just like you would to a friend. Then they create stories, and then those stories can be seen in the platform, and we can add data to that. And with that, we can corroborate, we can see what's happening in terms of the data and in terms of the information. For us, it's interesting, this exercise, because every time we do this survey, the most important issue is the survey. So when we are looking into technology, we see what happens with stories. This year we are looking into the language of foundation, what the surveys and histories tell, the challenges, the most important challenges, and how to face them, and also using technology and AI. It can be read in different languages thanks to AI. And then the third point, then, which we're working a lot more, is to be able to recognize and systemize cases that are happening at the level of school programs and system, using again AI to work on education. And there is a publication of the World Bank that they take cases, study cases of things that these principals are doing and how important it is for their schools to do it inside the school. We also work with a partner in Brazil, Mega Edu. It's a really interesting intervention. If you don't know about it, it's well worth your while. The idea is to make better decisions inside the schools and be able to ask what the school needs based on the interest of the school, the teachers and the families. I said I was going to be brief. I'm going to pause here, and if you have questions, please write me. Thank you.
Thank you, Magdalena, for the presentation. Very interesting. It is important to have institutions such as school leaders because it provides information. It gives us a comparison point between different realities as well. So now Mike has a big challenge because, well, very briefly, in 7-8 minutes, because Barbara is connected waiting for us. We'll give her the floor later. But can you please tell us, how do we think about these same questions, but from the academia? You can begin with your response, and then we can get the presentation ready for the next one. Hi, how are you? Oh, wow. How's everybody? Maybe let's stand up and move a little, move around. No? Okay, that's fine if you don't want to. Anyway, good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here with colleagues that make me feel so optimistic after the sessions of the day and seeing what's happening with the classes with Dr. Yafang from Hong Kong and other perspectives. I want to present briefly, although my wife says that's impossible, but I want to share some brief words about an initiative that I just started last Wednesday. Technically, was the first time that we used the name of the project in public, and it's an effort of not at the school level or global, but it's the first one in Chile. So with everything that's happening, it is a proposal of collaboration to take advantage of what the AI can offer and to understand where are we heading to as a profession, which is key for me. It's not just school improvement. There won't be school improvement if this profession does not make the progress. So I'm going to take as a testimony that your presence here means that you are willing to lead in the profession. Some have some questions. I don't see there's some the certainty in your face, but we're going to assume yes, and let's keep going. First, So RILE, or the Inter-American Educational Leadership Network, it's basically a group of 12 institutions in this hemisphere dedicated to support school leaders. We have a representative of the University of Cordoba right here, very close to me, to just mention another representative. These are our projects. You can look at rilecollaboration.org for more details. We'll have webinars throughout the year. You can check out the website, since I don't have time to explain this more in detail. But in general, we have the belief in Chile, that applies in Chile, that school leaders here, principals in particular, can act as leverage to change the system. And it's important because we can start from there. We know the challenges of principles, and it's true. We all agree on this. And with the research, polling and OCDE, many others, we can see this. There's evidence. But with what has happened this last time is that there are a lot of innovation things going on. So we cannot just be there depressed after a seminar, so to say. So because the evidence of innovation and success is very powerful. But this is part of the challenge. These are excellent points, innovations. And as a profession, our big challenge is how to learn together collectively what we are learning in so many examples. And what you were talking about in your school, I think it's wonderful, very interesting. And there are so many more examples. How do we accumulate this for the profession in particular? And what makes this possible if that is our challenge? What can we do with AI that wasn't possible before? And this is what we're thinking about and opening up the conversation, because we want to understand how to do this. And in each context, and it's not just knowing about the curriculum, about teaching, about technology, or having some skills. You need to decide, how do I do it here with these colleagues? Not theoretical colleagues, but this person that was messing with me last year or was bugging me about something I did. So I need to make the decisions in my context, and that's, to me, is a skill that we need to develop as leaders intentionally, about our criteria, about reading the context, and to decide appropriately, not in general, but here. Second, after doing all of this, after trying to decide, we need to try to decide, what do we learn? For example, a principal in a school after the pandemic and everything that happened, maybe with a demographic change in the community, working with their teams, trying here, trying there, making mistakes. If successful in their programs, in their activities, where is that learning going to? Next week, there's another challenge, new one. A profession won't make progress like this. So what we are trying to do is to have a project in the second week of existence. This project is leading, and it's in coordination with Chile Más, with the participation of Columbia University, which I'm affiliated to, as well as Boston College, and also our colleagues from San Diego, and also the Católica University, Catholic University, University of Desarrollo, and in alliance with academia and principles of Impulso Docente. And what we are trying to do is to connect the dots, basically. Not trying to impose anything. Each one can go on with their programs, projects, teamwork, etc. But how do we make it work so that we can have collective learning? How can we do that? First, we are going to acknowledge that one of the main challenges is the isolation of leaders. And from there, we can try to capture the complexity of what they are doing. And it is, maybe you won't agree, but it's not a thing of just saying, okay, it's a good practice, do it. That's not enough. How, when? In combination with something first. Those are the decisions that matter. So we're going to use simulations, digital experiences that you may have, that we have already been developing, and with the opportunity of practicing on those situations. And first time that a parent is mad at you about how you treated their precious son, and in today, how do you do it? So how do you work on that digitally? So if we work together and we share those tools nationally on how we work on that, we can start as a system collectively trying to understand our own decision patterns and understand what are the most difficult challenges that we have and which we've already dominated. And finally connecting those dots in a smart network. I know I have 30 seconds left. Okay. So basically, I just want to share that we have several projects that we are developing in these types of drills, simulations with colleagues from Católica University. We're working with the Department of Medicine to learn from different fields that are also doing these simulations with Sebastián Marambia. I don't know if he's still here from Circles, and we're leveraging their technological knowledge. And we're working with people who do analysis of networks using AI so that we can look and read and understand who's working on what. It would be great to know if I'm a principal and know that there are other 13 principals going through the same thing, and it would be great to be able to connect, share resources, capture what we are learning from all of that. That's the spirit of leaders, and it's another example of a simulation that we are doing, sharing this with countries between Colombia, Chile, Peru, United States. And if you want to try it out, here it is. You're more than welcome to be part of the research. There's some simulations, and we can look at the different decisions, what the novices are doing, learning from our own criteria, learning from our own professional judgment, and develop that. And we have the project I just mentioned. We also have groups of teachers, College Columbia University, which is where I work at, also with San Diego, with network analysis, and also with academics from Chile, with scholars from Chile. And that's a system that we are starting to build. We're open to suggestions and to keep going with this smart system that learns from what you are doing and what you are learning from. Thank you. That's what we want to do. Capture knowledge and sharing it collectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We also need to give space for presentations so interesting as this one. But just so you keep in contact, you have the QR codes. Jose, where can I find more information or your email if someone wants to know more about you? And we cannot keep moving ahead with this panel, but yes, my personal email is jose.isacartes or in LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay, so please a round of applause again for them, and thank you so much for being here with us. Besides that, before you go away, here we have some presents for you, for Magdalena, for Jose Manuel, that were part of this panel. Thank you for being here with us, also for Michael. And while we give them these gifts, we are going to keep moving ahead with our agenda. As Felipe said, we have the International Conference titled Lessons from the Indigenous Communities in the Americas on Sophisticated Collaboration and Cultural Participation, given by Barbara Rogoff, USC Foundation, Distinguished Professor in Psychology at California University in Santa Cruz. Barbara Rogoff is a distinguished Professor of Psychology in the UCSC Foundation in Santa Cruz. Her research is looking into early childhood learning and how the communities organize different opportunities of learning. She also has collaborated with children from different indigenous communities of Americas. So, Barbara, thank you for being here with us, connected. Good afternoon. Hello and good afternoon where you are. It's a pleasure.
Me gustaría estar ahí con ustedes, pero por este medio estamos bien también. Lo que quiero presentar hoy es una poquita de información
A bit of information
sobre cómo los niños
about
aprenden a
how
colaborar.
children learn to
Y esto
collaborate,
depende en saberes
and
de algunas comunidades
this
indígenas de
depends
las
on
Américas,
some of
donde
the
he trabajado y
communities of
también con
indigenous peoples in
un
the
grupo
Americas.
de
I've worked
compañeros de
with a group of
América del
colleagues
Sur,
in South America,
Central
Central
y
America, and
Norteamérica,
also
y
North
en
America,
entender cómo es que
so we
los
can
niños
understand how
indígenas
the
y las
indigenous
comunidades
children and the
indígenas
communities
preparan a sus
prepare
hijos.
their children for
Para empezar,
sharing. So to start,
quiero mencionar
I want
que
to mention
hemos
that
desarrollado
we have
unos
developed
prismas que
some
distinguen
prisms that
varias
distinguish
maneras de
different ways in
arreglar
which
el aprendizaje.
learning can be
Esto
arranged,
varía en
and this
diferentes
varies
comunidades,
according to
aunque
each
todos
community.
podemos aprender
But it's
en más que
something
una
from
manera,
where we can all learn,
todos lo hacemos,
and we all
pero
learn in different ways or proportions, more likely.
Muchos niños en las Américas
Many
de
children
herencia
in the
mexicana
Americans from
y
Mexican
indígena muestran fortalezas para aprender. Incluso
families
colaboración
learn
sofisticada,
in a
atención
sophisticated
aguda,
manner.
consideración al
They
otro y
consider the
la
other
dirección del grupo,
and the direction of the
ganas de
group.
ayudar
They
y
want to help,
iniciativa. Y
and
esto
they
creo que
they are
esas
proactive.
destrezas son muy
And these
importantes
skills are really
para
important
su aprendizaje
for them to
y para
learn,
que
and
nosotros que
for us
intentamos
that
ayudarles
we
a
try
aprender,
to
de
help them
reconocer
to
que
learn
ellos tienen
and
mucho
recognize
que
that they
ofrecer.
have a lot to offer.
Una que es lo que
One
quiero
of
enfocar
those
es la
is
colaboración
the
sofisticada.
sophisticated collaboration.
Los niños en muchos pueblos
The
indígenas de
children
las
in
Américas
many of the
comparten su
indigenous
pensamiento
peoples
por medio de
share
actuar como
the
un ensamblaje,
thoughts
coordinando sus
working as an
ideas.
ensemble,
Y es el doble
working with
que
their
comunidades,
ideas, and it's double
de
as
herencia europea.
communities
Es
that
decir,
come from
las
an
comunidades
European
indígenas
background.
de las
So
Américas,
the
en
indigenous groups
estas,
from the
los
Americas,
niños y los
children
grandes,
and also adults,
pienso también,
I think,
colaboran
collaborate
de una
in a
manera
way
sofisticada,
that is sophisticated,
el doble
double
en comunidades de la clase
that
media
communities
en
in
Estados Unidos, en México, en varios otros
the
lugares.
middle class in the US and
Y
Mexico.
quiero mostrarles
And I want
es
to share
cómo
and show
aparece
you
esta forma
how
de
it
colaboración
looks like,
sofisticada.
this sophisticated collaboration.
No hay sonido, pero no importa.
It doesn't have any sound, but it doesn't matter.
Espero que pueden ver
I hope you can
cómo,
see
las
how
niñas
these
están en Los Ángeles,
girls,
en
they
niñas
are
de
in
herencia
Los
mexicana.
Angeles, they have Mexican background.
Espero que pueden ver
I hope
cómo
you can see
están
how
coordinando
they
sus
are
acciones,
coordinating each
atentas
other,
una
and
a
they
la
are
otra, a
really
la
aware
dirección del
of
grupo.
what one is doing and the other, and the direction of the group
Un
is
organismo con
like
seis
an organism
brazos.
with 6 arms.
Espero que esto
I hope
pueden ver.
that you can see this.
Entonces,
So,
en varias
in many
investigaciones
investigations,
hemos encontrado
research,
esa forma
we have
de
found that way
interactuar
of interacting.
muy atenta,
They are
muy
really aware,
sofisticada,
it's really sophisticated,
sin
without
interrumpirse,
interrupting each other,
sin
without
pleitos. Es una
fighting,
forma
is
que
a
hemos
way
visto
that we
en
have seen of
muchos
collaboration
lugares,
in many
en
places,
muchas
in
investigaciones.
many of our
A ver cómo
investigations.
ya
Let me see. Okay,
PowerPoint.
my PowerPoint disappeared.
Ahí está.
There it is.
En una investigación,
In an
comparamos
investigation, we
niños de
compared
herencia mexicana
children
que
from
tienen
Mexican
herencia indígena
background
y
who are
niños
also
de la clase
indigenous
media en los
and
Estados Unidos
children
de
from middle
herencia
class in the
europea.
US with
Están
European background,
intentando
and they are
formar
trying
una
to
ruta
create
dentro
a
de
route
un
inside of
almacén imaginaria y tienen
imaginary
que hacer
warehouse, and
una
they
ruta
need to create a route
eficiente,
that is efficient
pero juntas,
but together,
juntos. Entonces voy a
working together.
mostrarles
So
cómo
I'm going
hicieron
to show you how
par de
they,
hermanos.
this pair of siblings did it.
Están coordinando, están
They are coordinating,
avisando uno al
they
otro.
are saying what to do to each other.
En cambio,
On the other
par
hand,
de hermanos,
this pair
voy a
of
mostrarles
siblings,
cómo
I'm
hicieron.
going to show you how they did it.
Sorry, Bárbara, we are not
I'm
seeing your
sorry,
PowerPoint
Bárbara, no estamos
presentation.
viendo tu presentación de
I'm
PowerPoint.
sorry, but we can't
Disculpa,
see it.
no podemos verla.
You cannot see the PowerPoint.
¿No ver
I'm
el
so
PowerPoint?
sorry.
Ay,
I
disculpen.
must have gotten lost
Debo
in the
haberme
process.
perdido
You
en el
saw it
proceso.
first, though, right?
Yeah, we were seeing
Sí,
it until you
lo
show
veíamos
us
al
the video,
principio,
and
vimos el
after
video
that we
y después de eso
Okay.
te perdimos.
Thank you. I
Gracias.
will reshare.
Voy a volver a compartir mi pantalla.
yeah, now it's working again.
Ahora te podemos ver, gracias.
Okay. So, entonces vieron esa parte.
So you can see
pienso,
that
y
part, right?
después se
And then
perdió
you
aquí,
didn't see this part. Okay.
y, pues
So
esos dos
these
niños
two
mostré ya
kids,
que los
I
niños
showed
están
that they
colaborando,
are collaborating.
avisándose
And they are
entre
telling
ellos,
each other
niños
what to do.
mexicanos
These are
en,
Mexican
de
kids
herencia mexicana
of
en California, niños de
ancestry
herencia
from Mexico,
europea
and these are
en,
from
en
their ancestry
California
is European,
también,
also in California.
y así
And
hacen ellos.
this is how they do it.
El hermano ni mira a la
The brother
hermana,
doesn't even look at his
después ella
sister,
va
and
a
then
jugar
she
en el piso,
goes to
y
play
no,
on the
no
ground by
están
herself,
consultando entre ellos.
and they are not working together.
Así son los datos.
These are the
Y
data
en el grupo de
in
niños
the
de
group of
herencia
kids
mexicana,
that have a background,
con
a
herencia indígena,
Mexican background with
estaban colaborando
ancestry,
más de
indigenous ancestry.
50% del
They
tiempo.
they collaborate
en-
more than
y
50% of the
los
time,
niños de
and the
herencia
children
europea
from
de clase
European
media,
heritage
la mitad.
half of the time.
Entonces, lo
I'm
que
sorry,
hicieron
half
los
of what
de
the others did.
herencia europea
So
de clase media, dividiendo
they are from middle
la
class,
tarea.
and they divided
Y-
the task.
pero esto no fue común entre
But
los
this is
niños,
not common
de
between
de
the
mexicanos de
children that
herencia
have heritage
indígena.
from
Lo que
indigenous
hicieron
peoples and
estos
also Mexican.
niños,
What they
así
did,
como él
just
está
like him,
empujando a su
he
hermana
is
de
pushing his sister.
colaborar.
He doesn't want
O
to collaborate,
dividieron
or maybe they
la
divided
tarea
these
turno
task
por turno.
by
Entonces,
turns.
no es compartir
So it's
el
not
pensamiento
sharing,
como están haciendo
just like
estas
these
niñas y
girls are doing.
la mayoría de los
And
niños
most
de herencia
of the
mexicana,
children of
de familias
Mexican
indígenas.
heritage.
Otro ejemplo,
Another example,
esta es una
this
investigación
is a
de
research
programar un juego
of
y tienen
coding
que
a game.
escoger cómo
And they
son
need to
em,
choose
los dibujitos
the different
y
drawings.
hicieron en dos maneras.
And they did it in two ways.
Colaboraron en dos
They
maneras.
collaborated
Estas
in two
son,
ways.
voy a mostrarles
I'm going to show you.
una manera es construir
One is
propuestas
by
propone algo,
creating
la otra dice
proposals.
que
One
sí o
creates it
no,
and the other says
o
yes or no,
lo cambia un
or
poquito,
they change it a bit,
o a veces
or sometimes
colaboran
they
sin
collaborate
necesidad de hacer
without
propuestas.
needing
Entonces, esto
to
es
give
con
proposals.
propuesta.
So this is with proposals.
Y aquí la misma,
And here,
la misma par de
the
niñas
same
son
siblings,
estudiantes en la misma
I'm
clase
sorry,
en la
not
escuela.
siblings, they are
Ellas
students.
están
They
programando, pero sin
they
necesidad de
are
hacer
coding, but
propuestas.
without needing to make proposals.
Los niños de herencia mexicana
The
pues,
children
hicieron
of Mexican heritage
igualmente lo de
also
hacer
did
propuestas y
proposals
seguir sin
and keep
propuestas.
moving ahead without any proposal.
Con los niños
But
en los
with
Estados Unidos,
the
casi
children in the
no
US,
hicieron
they
la forma
almost
de colaborar
did
que
no
es sin
collaboration that is
propuestas,
without
solo lo de
proposal.
propuestas.
They just did
Y entonces
proposals.
es la mitad
So it's
de
half
lo que de la
of
colaboración de los
collaboration
niños de
that
herencia
kids
mexicana.
from Mexican heritage do.
Voy a mostrarles
And
lo
as
que
I'm
fue
going to
común
show you what's really
entre los
common
niños de herencia
between
europea
children
de los
of
Estados
European
Unidos.
heritage in the US.
Entonces, así son los datos.
Those
Los
are the
muestro
data.
porque
I
encuentro
show
que es
you
bonito, pero
because I think
también
it looks
muestra
pretty, but
claramente.
also shows clearly.
Esta es el tiempo
This
de 10
is
minutos.
in 10 minutes,
Cada
each one of these lines.
cuadradito es 10
Each
segundos. Y cada uno de
square is 10
las
seconds,
columnas
and each
es
of
un
the
par de
columns
niños.
is a pair
Estos son
of
de los
children.
Estados
So
Unidos de
these
herencia
are from the
europea
US
y de
with
los Estados
European
Unidos de
heritage,
herencia
and these
mexicana.
are from Mexican
Y
heritage.
lo que quiero
And what
subrayar
I want
es
to
que
highlight here
entre los
is
dos,
that between
el
both,
verde
the
es igual.
green is the same.
Siguieron con propuestas para
They
colaborar,
kept proposing for collaboration,
pero
but
el azul
the blue
es muy común
is really
entre los
common
niños de herencia
between
mexicana,
children of Mexican
pero
heritage,
poco común
but really
entre los
uncommon
niños de
between
herencia
children
europea.
of European heritage.
Lo que es muy común
What's
entre
really
los niños de
common
herencia
between
europea es
these
la
children
resistencia,
is
el en
resistance.
rojo.
That's red.
Tengo unos mensajes,
I
pero
have
no sé
some
si
messages
son de
here, but I don't
ustedes.
know if they are from you guys.
Oh, gracias.
Oh,
Me
okay,
están
thank you.
diciendo que
They are telling me that
como no puedo
as I
verlos,
cannot see
pero
you,
están interesados.
that you are
Gracias.
interested. Thank you.
Entonces,
So,
una cosa que
something that I
quiero decir
want
es
to
que
say is
siempre hay muchas variaciones.
there are many
y eso
variations, and
pudieron
that
ver en
you can see it
esta
here
case graph,
in
que
this
muestra que
graph
algunos
that
niños
shows that
aquí entre
some
los de herencia
children,
europea,
especially the ones of
podrían
European
haber
heritage,
estado de este
could
lado,
have been
y
in this
unos de la
side,
de
and
herencia
some
mexicana
of Mexican
podrían estar
heritage could
entre
be
el grupo de
in
los
the other
niños
group,
de
the group of
herencia
the
europea. No es
heritage
una cosa
EU.
blanco y negro,
It's not black
decimos.
and white.
Es una cosa que hay variación
There is
entre el
variation
grupo,
between
pero
groups,
también hay
but also
variación
there is
que viene
variation
con,
that comes with
la
the
experiencia y el
experience
tiempo,
and time
cuando migran
when
sus
their
familias,
families migrate,
con la imposición
with the
de otros
imposition
países
of
o
other
otras
countries or
culturas,
other cultures,
y por los medios,
and
y
by
también por la
the
escuela.
mediums
Y yo sé
and
que muchos
they
de
use, and
ustedes
also the schools.
trabajan
And I
en
know
la
many of
escuela,
you
y
work
creo
at
yo
schools.
también,
I
y
also
pienso
do.
que
And I
tenemos que
think
estar
that we need
conscientes
to
de
be
cómo
conscious about how
influimos
we
la colaboración en las prácticas que
help
usamos en
with collaboration
en
and
las
the
escuelas,
influence
las
we have
universidades.
in
El
collaboration
libro
and
a
how
la
it
derecha
presents
es un
itself.
libro que
This book on
se
the right
enfoca
is a
en
book that
cambios en
is
un pueblo
focused
maya
in the
tras
change of
80
a
años.
Maya town after 80 years, and how one person touched them, and how culture also influences back. Now, strengths for collaboration are many. One of those is to align with others and to be aware of what is happening. And in this research, we have many different points in this series of research. And I think I have time to show you. Our assistant was showing to one of the siblings, I think the sister, how to create a mouse that runs, and then told the brother to wait here with a small toy, and then the boy could make a paper frog. It's the same in the US. This is in Maya town in Guatemala. The kid has no need to look into what his sister is doing and the teacher, but you can see what he does. It's almost like a photo of. I have here the photo of the video, and he is really aware. He is really putting a lot of attention of what is happening. But in the same situation, here the brother is waiting for his turn, and you can see what he does. You can see that this boy, even though he looked a bit the others, it wasn't to see what they were doing, but to see why they are not looking at him, because he is doing funny things. That is a really different attitude, to look what is happening around you or asking for attention for yourself. So one of the strengths of collaboration is to be aware and putting your attention into what is happening and align with others. Another strength for collaboration is to respect the efforts of others and the group for the greater good. And in this situation, this is one of the kids that were in the last research. He came back after a week to get the toy that he made, and the assistant asked if he wanted to do this, make the same toy that his sister did last week, and they always say yes. So the assistant has a form that says that she has to wait when a kid asks for help. She has to wait a bit, not go immediately to reply. And this child, as you can see, is asking, he wants help, but is doing it in a way with a lot of respect. it was really hard for the assistant to ignore him what he's asking for, because she could see really well that he wanted to ask for help, but he didn't want to interrupt her. So he started to ask for help 3 times. When we see children from Mexican heritage in the US, in many research, we can see that they have in this way of considering the other, to see if the other person is in a point in what they are doing in which they can be interrupted. Instead, with children from Europe heritage in the US, they weren't rude exactly, but they didn't even check to see if the other person was in the middle of something else. They just asked directly for help. They interrupted the other, but not in a rude way. So here I am highlighting that to show respect of the efforts of the others for the common well is also a strength in collaboration with other people, with the group. And the third one that I want to mention is another strength is to have initiative to help without being asked to. So this is a picture of in the same town, Mayan town in Guatemala. I worked for many years there, and this child of 8 years, she is in charge and she knows how to use the photocopy machine. And her sister of 4 years is there to help her. So that way of being aware and being attentive, or to respect what's the objective of the group and have initiative, all of that is a strength in collaboration, and they are most common in, according to our research, between kids of indigenous communities than communities of middle class.
Here, I'm presenting a research that we did with children of European heritage in California, as well as US Mexican heritage. And these are sibling pairs, and we hired a student as a helper and as an assistant. And this is what she's showing children. She's showing them how to do a scientific artistic project. And between that, there are 15 opportunities that were given to the children, and so that they would ask for help to provide help without asking them. So in that photo, she is sharing that material that they need for the project. I will show you now a small video of how the children acted.
Examine children's helping without being asked. The instructor followed a script for solar printing that provided 15 opportunities to help.
Como cuando accidentalmente botó el material. Ella no les pidió a los niños que la ayudaran, y en este video, cuando el instructor bota los materiales, estos niños de clase media de herencia europea no intentaron ayudar. A diferencia de ellos, este niño de herencia mexicana ayudó a recoger los materiales y seguía contando y hablando sobre un evento ocurrido. En general, los niños de herencia europea de clase media no ayudaban al instructor, similar al comportamiento en casa, donde las madres reportan que no reciben la ayuda si no se les solicita. Esto era distinto entre los niños de herencia mexicana, donde los padres no tenían mayores opciones sobre qué escuela podían acceder. The data of these, I hope you could understand English as well. And this is what my colleague Angelica Lopez was describing, where to help the teacher, the indigenous Mexican heritage children in California helped more the teacher than those who had European heritage in California as well. And when compared with the child initiative in helping at home, the children with Mexican heritage from indigenous families, 84% of the families said that the children help without the need of being asked, which is something that was not common in those families with European heritage. And that is the same pattern for those children with Mexican indigenous heritage. Help teachers a lot, as well as their parents, and those who with European heritage don't help as much at home or the teacher. So there is another group who are children with Mexican heritage, with families with a lot of years of education, and they, with the teachers, acted more like those of European heritage that have also received education for more years. And those with Mexican heritage, with families with more education at home, or more education in general, acted more as the Mexican indigenous heritage. So the groups that has the experience of the two cultures, the culture of the school and the Mexican indigenous culture, they switch the way they act, whether it is an instructive situation, such as those children that have been attending school for several years, and at home, as well as those children that have experience with indigenous culture of Mexico. So it is a way of adapting to the situation, because the families have experience in both systems. So children in Americas and of indigenous heritage have strengths to learn the things that I just mentioned, which is sophisticated collaboration, acute attention, consideration, eager to help, and also initiative. And it is important to know how do they learn those strengths. And there isn't much time, so I can describe as much, but one important thing is that there is a way of acting which is helping each other for a common good. And when we ask children between 9 to 10 years of age, which are indigenous children from Mexico, and ask them why do they help, they said that because that's normal, because everybody helps. Working at home, it's a responsibility that they all have, because and they say because we live here, and it's a volunteer work. A 9-year-old girl explains why she helps with the washing of clothes, and she said, I do it because I want to, because it comes from my heart. And the phrase, that statement about that this is something that comes from my heart. I think it's key because when we ask mothers and parents of families of very small children, many said that this has to come from their heart. It is a goal about the theory of learning that children develop and their development. Children need, if they help, it's something that needs to come from their heart. Forcing them would be preventing their development, according to these parents. This mother explains this very beautifully. You can see how proud she is, and it isn't just because the children knows how to swipe floor, but that 3-year-old is already entering that circle of that family to help each other. And that is a very important goal to many of these indigenous families that we have talked to. Now, to conclude, I would like to mention that between the research group, we have tried to describe this way of fixing learning with many indigenous communities of the Americas. And it has 7 phases. I'm not going to get into details of each one of them, but just to describe that this is what we have built, and this is something you can check out online. And to conclude, this is something that can also exist in schools, in a school of the state of Utah, from kindergarten to 6th grade. I did a lot of research there and for several years, and children and learning here also has these 7 characteristics where they learn through observation and to be part of the decisions. And they have a goal, and there's something that they want. It is collaborative is that it is for the growth of everybody and to be responsible in the community. And number 5, they learn through contribution and observation. And same for 6. 7 is a little different because it is a state school, so they need to have tests. I mean, they have tests, and it changes a little bit, but and they don't pay as much attention to the exams, and they understand how they assess how children are learning through observing what they are doing and how they are working on the reading, writing. Thank you very much, and we can conclude with the presentation. I will stop presenting the PowerPoint, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor Barbara Robo, for that interesting presentation. And as we conclude the day of the lectures in the room, for those who are here, we invite you to enjoy some coffee before we conclude the day of the summit in the room where we started. Thank you very much.